Welcome to Manitou Springs.
Thank you.
Don't trip over the microphone.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah. All right.
There he is. Not a bad thing. Do I need to? Well, that's true.
Okay, we will call the regular meeting of the Manitou Springs City Council to order. Ms. Elder, Councilwoman Elder. All right. Before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize the employees, families, and the entire community of Virginia Beach. When that happened last week, it hit home pretty hard. Very unfortunate situation for the employees and for the whole city. I did reach out to the mayor of Virginia Beach and heard back from him as well. He was grateful for our thoughts and prayers. And I just also want to say to all of our employees of the city of Manitou Springs that we will do our very best job to make this a really good environment where everybody enjoys working here, a culture of an employee of choice. We appreciate everybody who works here, and we certainly will do our best to keep something like that from happening in Manitou Springs. No guarantees, of course, but it's pretty personal when that happens in the municipality. So I just thought I would mention that. Pledge of Allegiance. Let's see. Sir, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Here we go.
Oh, there it is. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And roll call.
Mayor Gray.
Present.
Mayor Tim. Present. Councilman Smith.
Here.
Councilwoman Elder. Here. Councilman Rourke.
Here.
Councilwoman Holbrook. Here. Councilman Todd.
I think he said here.
He said here via video. Okay.
Approve the agenda. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion second. Any further discussion?
Yes, I got an email from Bob Todd who asked me to relay.
Mr. Todd is on joining the meeting with us.
No?
Yes.
Yeah, he's right here.
Oh, he is? Oh,
Yeah, he
okay.
is.
Then he has an amendment to make to the, not to the agenda, I'm sorry, it's to the minutes.
Alright.
Okay,
Yeah,
my
and it
apologies.
probably would be better if you go through his email, cause I'm not sure how easy it's gonna be to hear.
And my apologies, it's not the agenda, I just wanted to make sure we didn't miss it, so
Okay.
I'm gonna get it pulled up here.
Alright, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any further discussion? Now please vote. If you could move that sign for us, please. Motion passes just slightly more unanimously. Thank you. Alright.
There you go. There we go. Perfect.
Just be careful not blocking the door. Public comments. So we typically have a couple minutes for folks to make comments on items that are not on our agenda tonight. And if there's anybody who would like to address the council, Ms. Johnson.
I knew it was a big Mr. Change when I said him.
Natalie Johnson, 22 Taos Place. I just wanted to share with council and the community that the school board offered the superintendent position to Elizabeth Domain about an hour ago, and she accepted. So we're moving forward with the contract, and we're hoping that she actually can start a little early, so she actually might start by the 15th of this month. I will certainly bring her here to meet everyone, but I just wanted to share that.
Great, thank you, Ms. Johnson. Anybody else have any public comments on non-agenda items? Yes, Mr. Delich.
Alan Delwich, 210 Via Linda Vista, and I just want to make a brief request. I believe after this meeting we have 13 council meetings left in this term of council, and I think it would be really good for the community if you did every effort not to do any more last-minute amendments of the agenda. It's really tough if you want to be involved in the community when you're not aware of the items, especially when they're critical items like hiring, firing, stuff like that. So please, unless it's an emergency, get it on the agenda so we know about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delich. Anyone else? Mr. Hodges?
Randy Hodges, 142 Clarksley Road. I just wanted to comment on the waking up yesterday morning, Monday morning, with no water, and how disturbing that was to me. Not only was it inconvenient, it was kind of frightening to me. And I thought, what part of our aging, over 100-year-old water system has failed now? And so I was thinking, I thought when I was on council, we had put some incremental increases on the rates on the water system, but maybe that was wastewater. I can't remember, but I thought we had some things in place to start improving the infrastructure, the water infrastructure. And I appreciate the emails I got back from Councilwoman Elder and you, Mayor, and that you had received a study on raising rates, and there was a master plan in place for water and wastewater to go forward. But when I looked on the website today, I only saw a master plan for wastewater. So I'd just like to perhaps something go out and tell us what's going on with improvements to our water enterprise system.
June 11th, we have on our agenda the water sewer rate study, and that study will dictate what the rates are and how much money we'll have available to do the projects pursuant to the master plans.
All right,
July.
and let's get some
June
projects going. Let's not just study it.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Hodges. Anybody else? Okay, consent calendar. Would entertain a motion concerning item F, consent calendar. It has 4 items on there. One is approval of minutes of May 21st, approval of minutes of May 28th, consideration of appointment of Alan Delwich as a regular member of the Housing Advisory Board, and our warrants and bills payable for May.
But I would like to pull off item 1 of the consent calendar to discuss.
Any other items that need to be considered separately on the consent calendar?
Bob, can you hear?
Bob, can you hear okay? Okay. I should turn you on.
You can't hear now?
I know, I gotta find where the.
It's not gonna work.
Say something again, Bob. Okay. Yeah, it's still pretty low. Okay. I think Susan's gonna carry him forward for you. Just so we can hear easier.
Alright, so we're on the consent calendar.
Right.
Is there an item related to the consent calendar?
It is.
Just tell me which one you'd like to pull off.
It has to do with the May 28th minutes.
Okay? And is requesting that those be pulled off from the consent calendar?
Yes.
Not the changes quite yet.
Right,
Okay.
yes.
Any other items to pull off from the consent calendar? Okay, so we have 2 items on the consent calendar, consideration of reappointment, I may have said appointment, it's reappointment of Alan Delwich, and the warrants. I would entertain a motion concerning the consent calendar.
I make motion we approve number 3 and 4 of the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion second, any further discussion? If not, please vote. Not on the consent calendar, he doesn't. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Delovitz, thank you very much for re-upping on your appointment, we appreciate that. Let's take item 1, approval of the minutes of May 21st, 2018.
So I have 4 items that, primarily administrative, that were incorrect. Item 1 is that Councilman Todd was listed as both present as well as excused. Item 2, under the license, Babu's license motion, I believe, and Councilwoman Elder, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the motion was that the motion to approve was contingent upon obtaining food service, sales tax, and business licenses.
That sounds right. And that's not in there.
No, item 3 is in paragraph H10, and since Mr. Hodges is here, he could correct me. I could be wrong on this, but it was having to do with the transportation fee, and the minutes say that the board is waiting for the mobility study to be completed before the Metro Board will discuss parking enterprise fund. Was it that, or was it the parking garage?
The enterprise fund.
It was, okay, so delete that, that is correct then. And then in H12, council did not unanimously vote in favor of the space command letter. Councilwoman Elder was not in favor of that.
Yeah, it says that.
Say again? It says it, but the vote says unanimous vote.
Says motion carried 5-1 with Councilwoman Elder voting against.
Then
That's what
mine-
mine says.
Mine up above the very first line here.
Oh.
Alright, so we're gonna clarify the minutes.
Quite good, Nancy, I can't believe that.
With those 3 items, with the changes as proposed by Mayor Pro Tem Fortune, and entertain a motion concerning the May 21st minutes.
I move we approve the May 21st minutes with items amended as stated.
I'll second.
There's a motion second, any further to May 28th? Some suggested changes to those minutes.
Yes, Councilman Todd sent an email saying that his absence, and my absence was as excused for unanticipated remote video technical issue or equivalent. So Leah had been trying to get him on board for a good part of that meeting and was unable to, and I think the minutes do not reflect that according to his, what he said.
Right.
Any other changes to those minutes? With that change noted, I'm going to entertain a motion.
I move council approve the minutes of May 28th, 2019 special city council meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes. Ms. Walbrook? Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. All right. Item G1, presentation of Pikes Peak Range Riders and Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. What would you like to tell us about the Range Riders?
And all of you, that it is not the Colorado Springs or Bus Rodeo and not the Colorado Springs or Range Riders, it's Pikes Peak, and we fully want to embrace all of you folks. You have many, many military families, great history, so thank you for that privilege. I have the privilege this year to be president of both the Range Riders and the rodeo, or I'm the only one stupid enough to ever accept that. But so first of all, on the rodeo, of course, Spencer Penrose started it in 1937, 1946. He was instrumental in designating all of the proceeds from that rodeo to go to our local families in military with needs. Many with deaths and wounded at times, but others into the fund with their morale and their need fund. And so we surpassed $5 million in 2017 into local needs in all of our military installations in all of the different branches. And then we wrote checks last year for $189,000 from proceeds of 4 days of rodeo. So we want you to know we're serious about that. We love our military. We love this community. And we appreciate your support. We'd love to have you come. I'll let the ladies that do a phenomenal job with all the dates, but we want to invite all of you to come. And one quick suggestion, get online and get your tickets because they're going fast and we'll sell out almost all of those performances. So they'll give you all the details. As far as the range riders are concerned, we just finished our warm-up ride. Our first pre-ride was on Fort Carson, had a great group. And the range riders first ride in 1949 with the purpose of promoting the rodeo, and that is still a primary purpose for us. Street breakfast, the rodeo course is the second oldest event, only after the hill climb, still going on in all of the Pikes Peak area. The rodeo parade is the oldest parade that the city has had, so we love your support and we appreciate that. As far as the range riders, we now have expanded and we have Range Ride Foundation. We have Latigo, that's the home of 2 therapeutic riding centers, home of the Pikes Peak Range Ride Pivots, the Rangerettes, and a number of other programs that we do there. So we're fully committed to promote the rodeo. The street breakfast, of course, is coming up, and the ladies may tell you that as well, but it's the 19th of July. And so, no, that's not right. That's the street breakfast is the start of the range ride, which is June. I gotta get all my dates being president of both. When is it?
June 19th.
June 19th, okay. June 19th. I got the 19th right, but the month of June, not July, excuse me. And we hope you'll come down for that. We had almost 7,000 folks there last year. So we're saying all of that, our thanks and appreciation. Please keep involved with us. And here are the Girls of the West and Corliss Palmer, our sponsor for that. Corliss? No, when we decided with them wanting to keep it to 10 minutes, we'll give you girls the 7 minutes.
Hi, I'm Corliss Palmer. I've been a volunteer for the rodeo for 18 years as director of the Girls of the West. And the Girls of the West program started in 1922, so you can look on our website and see all the past Girls of the West way back that are pretty fun. We have a competition the Friday of our rodeo to pick next year's aide. They work 2 summers, and it's a big commitment, and I will introduce them now. Kayla Summers is a 2019 Girl of the West. She's a 20-year-old daughter of Brian and Suzanne Summers. She'll be a senior at the University of Northern Colorado, where she'll receive a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences, all while maintaining her emergency medical technician license. She plans to continue as paramedic school and then medical school. She was a Pikes Peak Rangerette for 5 years and also served as El Paso County Queen. She rides a paint horse named Abigail. And our 2019 8th Girl of the West, Michaela Carrico, is the 18-year-old daughter of Chauncey and Teresa Carrico. She just graduated from Woodland Park High School, and in the fall she'll attend Lamar Community College to study equine management. She plans to then fulfill her dreams to become a rodeo commentator. She served as royalty for several rodeo organizations, and she rides a Palomino gelding called G-Man. And please enjoy the presentation.
Hi everybody, I'm Kayla Summers, Girl of the West.
And I'm Michaela Carrico, Aide to Girl of the West.
We're both proud ambassadors for the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo. You'll see our Perkins pink Ram truck all over town as we head out to appearances at businesses, military installations, and community events. But why do we do it? Because we are passionate about the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo and the Western traditions that it represents. And tonight we're here to tell you that Championship Rodeo is coming to town for the 79th Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo, July 10th through the 13th at the scenic Norris Penrose Event Center. The top talent in professional rodeo will be invited to this Pro Tour PRCA sanctioned event, where they will compete in 7 standard events, including bareback riding, saddle bronc riding, tie-down roping, steer wrestling, team roping, barrel racing, and bull riding. Fans will come from near and far to enjoy top rodeo action and tons of family fun, all while supporting our local military and their families.
That's right, Kayla. I'm so excited for this year's rodeo. The Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo runs Wednesday, July 10th through Saturday, July 13th, with performances at 7 p.m. Wednesday through Saturday evenings and a Saturday matinee at 12:30. There'll be 4 performances at Invitational Championship Rodeo and the thrilling Gold Buckle Championship Round on Saturday night, where the top 8 scorers and 8 fastest times from the qualifying events lay it all on the line for over $200,000 in prize money. It's edge of your seat excitement from the first event to the last. But wait, there's more. Don't miss the smash hit bonus event, Bullfighters Only, freestyle bullfighting, back this year and better than ever. These fearless bullfighters will be going head to head with Mexican fighting bulls to post the top scores, claim some bragging rights, all with the cash prize on the line, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday only. This all takes place at the Norris Colonels Event Center, one of the most beautiful venues in the country to enjoy the sport of rodeo. Plan to get your tickets early and buy online to save time and money. The Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo is for the true fan, the first timer, and everyone in between.
There's lots to do before the rodeo too. Grounds open at 4 p.m. for the evening performances and 10 a.m. for the Saturday matinee. Come early, skip traffic, and enjoy all the family-friendly pre-show fun in our fan zone. There's mutton busting tryouts, pony rides, dancing lessons, petting zoo, and you can grab a bite to eat. Plus, there's shopping, and more shopping at this year's first annual Hanks Marketplace, a Western shopping extravaganza located right on the grounds at the Norris Penrose Event Center Indoor Arena. So be sure to stop by before the rodeo and enjoy our brand new shopping experience, featuring unique clothing, art, jewelry, and much more. But then it's time to rodeo. All performances begin with the Pikes Peak Range Rider pivots and Pikes Peak Rangerette drill teams, followed by the Fort Carson Mounted Color Guard. Stick around after the rodeo for autographs from contestants, the Girls of the West, and the Pikes Peak Rangerettes. Then head on over to the Coors Roadhouse Saloon for live music, dancing, and plenty of ice-cold Coors. Our local military are honored at each and every performance. Fort Carson on Wednesday evening, Missile Defense and First Responders on Thursday evening, Air Force Space Command on Friday evening, the United States Air Force Academy at the Saturday matinee, and NORAD US Northcom on Saturday evening. The Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo has proudly been supporting our local military and their families since 1946.
Rodeo season kicks off with some other great events that our community loves. Join us bright and early from 5:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. for the annual Carl Springs Western Street Breakfast and the official send-off for the Pikes Peak Range Riders annual ride. Enjoy the $5 breakfast prepared and served by active duty military volunteers. Breakfast includes eggs, pancakes, milk, coffee, and juice, and is free for children 5 and under. And for all those little cowboys and cowgirls ages 3 to 10, help them get on their Western gear and accessories to compete in the Little Cowboys and Cowgirls Roundup. Also held June 19th at the Street Breakfast. There will be great prizes and the winners get to ride on a float in the rodeo's parade.
Speaking of the parade, what better way to kick off Rodeo Week than with the 79th Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo Parade, taking place on Tuesday, July 9th, starting at 6:30 p.m. in downtown Colorado Springs, right on Tejon Street from St. Frank to Vermahoe. This beloved Western cultural event is free to attend and fun for the whole family. So we want you to mark your calendars, buy your tickets, and get ready for championship rodeo action at its best. The dates again for the Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo are Wednesday, July 10th through Saturday, July 13th. Save time and save money by purchasing your tickets online now, as advanced ticket pricing ends on June 30th. Discounts are available for military, first responders, groups, and children 12 and under. You can find all this information and much more on our website, pikespeakerbus.org. We'll see you at the 79th Pikes Peak Bus Rodeo, July 10th through the 13th at the Norris Penrose Event Center in Colorado Springs.
We have some posters here. If you could put them up around town, we would really appreciate it.
Just leave us with the sash. Thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate that. Take a moment. I don't imagine you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Just in case you have other things to do.
long day.
Thank you again so much.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. We'll go ahead and call item H1, Canyon Avenue Art Project Agreement and Funding. My understanding that we have the agreement in front of us, and also, is this pertaining to this?
No.
And also a decision concerning some funding. I'm not sure if anybody wants to give us any update on that, Ms. Johnson?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, staff, and public. So the purpose of this item is for the city council to discuss and approve the funding source and artwork installation and maintenance agreement for the Canyon Avenue Art Tree Couple project. So just a little bit of background for those here this evening. The city council commissioned an art sculpture to memorialize several trees which were taken down along Canyon Avenue. And the parties of the agreement include Manitou Springs Art the parties of the project, include Manitou Springs Arts Council, who helped procure the artist, Smoke Brush Foundation, who is the artist and will be doing the sculpture, and City of Manitou Springs. The city's allocating $22,840 to the project and will be the owner of the art once it is done. According to the original project understanding, $2,840 will be paid to Manitou Springs Art Council as reimbursement for their expenses related to procurement of the art piece, and $15,000 will be paid to Smoke Brush for the art piece, including design, construction, and installation. And then also the council directed on May 7th that up to an additional $5,000 will be paid to a structural engineer for engineering plans for the art piece. It should be noted that funding for the project was allocated in the 2018 budget, but the project was not completed or commenced in 2018, and the funding for that was not carried over into the 2019 budget. And the finance director is recommending the funding come from the assigned East End sales tax and the capital improvements fund. And so attached in the packet is the agreement. And then in front of you this evening is Exhibit A, which is the project description. And the city council is asked to review and discuss and take action on the artwork installation and maintenance agreement and recommended funding source.
Alright, any questions for Ms. Johnson? I have several questions on the agreement. One is pertaining to paragraph 6B. It talks about prior to year 5, or 5 years, foundation shall transfer to the city certain rights. My question is whether we want to be a little bit more specific in that paragraph. It didn't seem like there were any remedies, or what happens if they don't. Are there any implications with that with regard to the operation of the sculpture? And so really, Mr. Parker, I don't know if that's something that we should tighten up or not.
We could work on that. I mean, that would basically be a breach of the contract. We'd have to, ultimately, like any contract, if you wanted to enforce it, you have to go to court and get specific performance, and they have to provide that material to you.
And I was thinking more, was there a practical reason why we would want to have that more specific in terms of when we would, if we were going to operate it or be involved with the operation, would we want to be more specific in when that would take place?
Prior to the 5-year expiration,
yes.
Maybe like 60 days before or something like
Some
that.
period of time, I'm just not sure how it's going to work.
See, that's part of the issue, is where I don't think anybody's completely clear exactly what's going to be happening. So I think it would make sense, we could say, 90 days before expiration of the contract, the part, it should be transferred, something like that. So the city
Or at the request of the city.
Right, I'm happy to do that.
That was just my suggestion. Mr. Cody, why don't you come on up? The representative of Smoke Brush Foundation. First, thank you for helping with this project, actually spearheading the project. I appreciate it.
Don Godey, 103 Cliff Road. I was going to just recommend, if you want, what we did with the city of Colorado Springs is we had a manual created. So if you want to put that in there, I'd be happy to write it, and you put whatever timeline you want. But I would strongly encourage you, especially working with me, give me a deliverable regarding the typing all of the institutional download is what I call it.
I think if we put a date in the calendar, he'll know the date.
Yeah, absolutely. We could say, how about you approve it subject to me providing some language, working with Don, we can get it right based on what we do with cars.
And I'm happy to do it in the 4th year or 3rd, or just to have, you could always have a copy of it way ahead of time too.
Great.
In case I could hit
And
like
maybe
this.
just something more at the request of the city.
Sure.
If not before. All right, and the other one I have is paragraph 8, just in terms of providing the insurance prior to the installation. It seemed to me to be a prudent thing that we would have proof of insurance prior to installation.
We would just simply put you down as additional insured on our policy.
I believe paragraph 8 doesn't specifically say when that would be provided. And I'm suggesting it say when it would be provided. It just says you will provide it, it doesn't say when you'll provide it. I'm suggesting it be provided before installation.
Sounds good, we can add that.
Alright, any other questions or concerns concerning the agreement? Yes, Ms. Johnson?
Do we want that before installation, because doesn't it go onto our insurance once we're the owner? I was thinking maybe it would be while they're fabricating and installing it.
You just wanna know that we have the insurance, is that kinda
Yes.
what it is? Yeah, I mean, we're happy
And that we're
to.
named insured, et
Sure, we
cetera.
could put that in like right before the first check or whatever, and
Yeah,
I'm happy to
perfect.
give it to you at any time. I actually have a copy of the policy.
Yeah, I mean, the way it reads right now is kind of requires once the contract is signed and until their maintenance obligations expire. So, I mean, I could clarify, commencing on the effective date and until the maintenance obligations expire, something like that.
Alright, anybody else have any questions, concerns, concerning the project? Yes, sir. Councilman Roth.
Yeah, how tight are these timelines? Seems like a complicated project. Have you done something like this before, or somebody else done something like this before to crib off of?
Nope.
So this could easily slip unknown amount of time?
Nope,
No.
I don't think so. I mean, what do you wanna do?
Well, if.
Do you wanna
my concern
penalize
on
us
this
if we
project-
don't, do you wanna punish us if we don't get it to a certain point, or?
I don't want this to drag out forever, basically. And
So how would you like to do
I do
that?
appreciate these timelines in here, because we didn't have them before.
How about updates at the end of each month?
That'd be fantastic, actually.
I'm happy to do
Where
that,
things
that'll
go.
help keep me organized and focused as well.
That'd be
So,
great.
so if you wanna put that in there too, that, I don't know if Kim, you're comfortable with just doing an end of the month update or something, and then sharing it with council.
Actually, my understanding is you would do the update, and
But I need to get you the information.
that's what I'm saying, you do the update.
What about
Yeah.
quarterly?
Yeah.
I don't know what monthly.
It's only
It's not very,
supposedly a 6-month project at the most. So, a monthly email would be fine with me. I don't need you to come before council unless you think that's better. But a monthly update would be fantastic, and whether you just send it to Kim and she sends it out with her update that she already does, that's fine with me.
I got a better idea, let me run it by you. Why don't we go ahead and put up a website, get it done preliminary, like even as early as, June, we could get up this month, and we could actually post it on the front page, and then that way anybody can look at it anytime. And then if you wanna just share it with us, we can keep it up to date, even weekly, cause some things could change weekly, and we're a very visual foundation anyway, so we could have a lot of photos and things like that.
If that works best for you, that's fine with me.
I don't mind the accountability, I actually appreciate it, so I'll just make a note to get working on the website this week.
That'd be great. Any other questions? If not, we'd entertain a motion concerning, this agreement, and including in that motion perhaps indicate a designated source of funds.
I move we approve the, recommended funding sources in the attached memo and amount, as well as the, installation and maintenance agreement with the, recommended amendments, to paragraphs 5 and 8 and
Six
six.
A.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but did I get a chance to talk about the agreement? Cause I had a couple of things I wanted to ask you.
Hold on one second, please. We're in the midst of a motion, you'll have a chance when we have discussion.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Could you start from scratch so we got that?
Sure.
Sorry.
I move that we approve the funding source and amount as stated in the attachment to this packet as recommended by our finance director. And I also recommend that, I also move that we approve the, installation and maintenance agreement in this packet with the amendments as discussed in paragraphs
6B and 8.
6B and 8.
Alright, actually, I probably did something a little bit, hold that motion for a second, I'm gonna hold for a motion. Do you have recommended changes to the agreement
Yes, sir,
itself?
I do.
Would you withdraw your motion? Thank you.
I
thought
will-
maybe
That's what I was
was
trying to
withdraw
say.
my motion.
As you were saying, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Cody?
The only thing I wanted to bring up is, thank you very much for putting this together, Jeff. This is like, based on all of our conversations, this is brilliant. The one issue I have is that when we talk about the internet connection, could we please put on there that that's gonna need to be private in some capacity? It can't have to be public, because it's a very sophisticated network as far as, I don't want somebody hijacking tree, it's possible for somebody to hijack the tree, so I just wanna put some wording in there to work with you guys to make sure that's a secure, maybe use the word secure internet connection.
What paragraph are we talking about, paragraph 4?
Oh, sorry, paragraph 5 in maintenance and repair, and it says the cost of, the last sentence is the cost of the internet connection and electrical services for the artwork shall be paid by the city. I just wanna put the word secure in with the internet connection, please, and there's lots of different ways to do that, you know, we can.
Do we know we can provide internet connection to them?
I was hoping you.
Has anybody looked into that now that we're agreeing to do it?
I thought maybe you checked into it, so.
Ms. Johnson?
I have not checked into that specific detail. We know electrical is there.
So do we want to put in a provision, if practical or possible?
Yeah.
The city will provide internet
It's not a
connection.
necessary part of the sculpture, but it's a very fascinating, amazing part of it.
So considering that apparently we have not looked into that, we
Okay.
might wanna modify that just in case.
Okay.
I'm not sure how we are gonna provide internet to it.
There's also another reference under 3, the very last sentence, a reference to service and a connection to the internet, that should also say secure.
And perhaps say both secure and if possible.
Yeah.
Practical, possible, whatever word we can, bunch of words in there. Mr. Brody, what else?
And then on number 4B, I thought we had decibel levels already in our code, and of course I scrambled to look for them, and I couldn't find them, because I dealt with this with conditional use down at the Sun Mountain properties. So there is actually a code, and there is a decibel level. I believe it's a state. We follow the states, so I didn't know if you wanted to put that in there so that doesn't, all of a sudden everybody's like, well, it has to be this, or it has to be this, but we already have it in the code.
Mr. Parker, is that under our nuisance?
Well, the reason why I didn't do that was because I wasn't sure we wanted to have the limit be a nuisance level limit. I thought that we wanted to work with the artist and decide this is reasonable or not for where it's placed, and that those nuisance limits are pretty high. So I didn't think that really made sense. So
Okay.
that's why I didn't put it in there. Because anything above a level is like, that's a total, it's a nuisance, anything below isn't.
Right.
Didn't seem like that might be the right standard.
I just didn't know if you wanted it in there so we knew what to keep it under, but
Yeah,
I can look that
to
up.
me it seemed like you probably would wanna just work together about, oh, that sounds reasonable, it's not bugging people, we're okay.
And we'll just have it for reference.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
And there's 2 houses right across the street from that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly why it's come up, because the Crystal Wizard has given me an earful, and I just wanna make sure that we're respectful to the neighborhood, so.
Anything else, Mr. Cody?
No, that's all I have, thank you.
All right, so now we go back to entertaining a motion with the suggested changes that, Mr. Cody mentioned, as well as the changes to paragraph,
3, 5, 6, B, and 8.
All right, 3, 5, 6. Go ahead.
Okay. I move that we approve the amount and funding source for the Cannon Avenue Art Project as stated in the attachment to this packet by our finance director, as well as approving the artwork installation and maintenance agreement with the amendments that we have discussed this evening to paragraphs 3 and 5 pertaining to the internet, as well as 6B and 8. Is that sufficient? Do I need to get more specific?
I think we've pretty much addressed them, so I've got them here, I'm gonna have them to your clerk before the meeting's over.
As captured by our city attorney.
All right, we have a motion, is there a
I'll
second?
second.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes. Councilman Todd?
Who just lost him?
Okay, motion passes, I don't know how to record that, 6-0. I think is, how we record that?
Yeah, seems we lost one, so.
We lost one. Motion passes 6-0. Mr. Cody, thank you.
Thank you.
This is gonna be very exciting. We'll look forward to seeing the progress as it comes along. Item 2, Manitou Springs Art, Culture, Heritage Tax Ballot Language. Mr. Kavanaugh, are you the spokesperson for this group?
I think so.
Okay.
So, it's good to see you. I was gonna say that Mr. Todd looks particularly sleek tonight, but he can't hear me. So I have a prepared statement. I'm gonna go through the statement, and then afterwards field questions as you have them. So this past Sunday afternoon, our group
Natalie Johnson, Shanti Toll, Michelle Laura Farley, and I met at the MAC for a couple of hours. And our principal aim was to confirm whether or not we're willing to enter into a discussion to refine, as we started this conversation last week, the match initiative, to further bring that proposal in line with what the city needs. And then beyond that, to gain greater buy-in from you. And within parameters, we'd like to talk. But we're also confident in our ability to mobilize a wide and varied block of voters to support a proposal that finally fixes the Carnegie Building's enormous flaws. We have a couple of attorneys present tonight, for which I believe the city may face a lawsuit in the future for those flaws if status quo persists. Funds a significant portion of the needs set forth in Plan Manitou, aligns the interests of the city's nonprofit community with the business community, and sustains arts, culture, and heritage in Manitou Springs for this generation and the next. Because we all know that a community isn't just bricks and buildings, it's platforms and people, programs. It's not either or, it's both and. People don't move here to Manitou Springs for the quality of the asphalt. They move to Manitou Springs for the quality of the programs, like parades that travel over that asphalt. Or, for example, if you can kind of hear in the background, they're not just sitting, for example, in the library's grass because the grass is good and green. They're sitting there because one of our high-quality nonprofits in this community is putting on a concert this evening. That's what community is built on. For a long time, I rely on the folks that I'm working with that have sensed this out. We've forgotten that fact that social infrastructure matters, and it requires ongoing, sustained financial support, which enables strategic opportunities that, frankly, I think transform lives. And the Match Initiative addresses this imbalance. At the same time, we very much value your voices. That's why we're coming to you, that we want to engage in a conversation. We tried to make that happen on Monday night. We understand that we weren't able to get anybody to make it. That's short notice. This is a fast-moving train. But what we need to know now is fairly straightforward, and this is subject of discussion. We're fully committed to placing this on the ballot this November. So we're going to make that happen. Knowing that, are you willing as a body to enter into a negotiation to seek some sort of compromise that's mutually beneficial to all parties, not just the community, because we know that this will be beneficial to the community. So what we'd like to know informally or by a voice vote on the public record, would you like to engage in a discussion in order to make this happen in the timeline that we know is relatively short in front of us? So I'll leave it at that. We very much want to include you to make this and refine it to as great a proposal as we think it could be.
All right, council, I think that, if I understand the request is to have indication from council whether we want to sit down with these folks and try to work out a ballot language.
Yes.
Ballot language that would be acceptable to city council and acceptable to Match folks. Is that the question?
That is the question.
And without knowing what the parameters are of that, it's a pretty broad question.
Well, we started last Tuesday, so you started, that's what we want. That's a perfect world. Nobody ever gets what they want. That perfect world doesn't exist. We live in Manitou Springs. It's close to perfect, but not quite. So what we'd like to do is sit down and refine it, to adjust it in such a way, I think, that would be beneficial to what you folks on city council think best reflects the needs of the community. We've done our level best to meet those needs by, frankly, sitting down with Plan Manitou and devising the initiative to meet those objectives. Like I mentioned before, 25 of the 46 goals that are set forth in Plan Manitou are meaningfully addressed through this initiative. 33% of the long-term actions and 15% of the short-term actions. So, we started with sort of an opening bid, and I think you have a solid sense of that, but, you know, that's a good reason to have a conversation.
Council, what's your pleasure, what's your questions? What direction shall we give?
If I could.
Sure.
I love this concept, I think it's a wonderful concept. My concern is because we have so many other, competing demands, if we as a body can come to a prioritization list of all of our demands in time to meet your timeline.
Yeah.
That being said, I, on one hand, would love to, I would much prefer to partner with you on this initiative. I'm just not sure, again, that we can meet your timeline. And I will just say from a personal, well, both from a citizen as well as a council person, there's no way I would vote for this without a sunset on it.
Yeah.
Because I think, to just put something out like this on for a permanent basis is, would be irresponsible.
Our first, to clarify, we did set 30 years in last week. I mean, but then again,
Okay.
this is a discussion
I
that's
missed
worth,
that.
that's
Yeah.
worth having.
I think 30 years is probably too long, even though that's the bond length. I think that this sort of an initiative needs to be, piloted and tested, and there's too many uncertainties. I'm thrilled that other cities have done it, and that's one of the reasons why I like the concept so much. So those are just some of my thoughts
Thank you.
about it.
Anybody else wanna weigh in?
I'd be willing to sit down with them, I think that, you know, we task, as I said last week, we task a lot of groups and people to go out and bring back through the community engagement, and I have to say that, you know, this group has done their homework, they came back. Granted, we do have a lot of other issues we know of, but we don't seem to have a proposal like we've seen from them for anything at this point, so I would be willing to sit down and talk to them.
This end?
Sure, so more than happy to go on record, as I did last week during our meeting.
Yeah.
And that is that I want the community to understand that we can't have all of the things we want.
Yeah.
And that they make an informed choice when they vote yay or nay on this initiative. So that is still a concern of mine. Regarding the initiative itself, something to think about is for council to be thinking about is giving a group the money to dole out and putting that in, basically that group is the one who's gonna be doling it out. We don't even do that with the lodging tax, we just say it's gonna be used in this way, and we generally give it to the chamber wholesale, although we don't have to. And so I would just be cautious about just giving up that control to a specific group who might not be around over the course of 30 years or however long it lasts.
Presumably that'd be part of the discussion, I assume.
Yeah, but since the timeline is short,
Yeah.
I wanna get it out now so that people can start thinking about what the issues really are within the document.
This is a fantastic, important and valid concern that's worth discussion. So I sit on PARA, Councilwoman Fortune, Mayor Pro Tem Fortune was there last evening, where a representative from the Manitou Community Market requested a $1,000 grant. PARA has set aside $2,000 for small grant programs. It was relatively opaque in the sense that it was not well advertised. This is an individual, the Manitou Community Market has come back to PARA for roughly 4 years straight. There's a concern that this has been overutilized, this one group has overutilized this source of funding, but the group submitted their request for need for this they asked for a $1,000 grant on time, and they were literally the only group that submitted for this grant. So there's $2,000 available, they asked for $1,000. We talked about it on PARA. I don't wanna get into the details of the deliberations.
Yeah, tie it back here to the library.
We ended up giving them $350. The grant process at our level and at other levels, I would suggest, is opaque not transparent, ad hoc, and it's just one-off. And I would suggest to you that it would make more sense to bin all of those grant-making programs for those smaller grants under one entity where you had a regular, rational, routine, systematic process for granting approval to these sorts of activities. I understand that might not philosophically, like, as you put it, you'd be giving up power, but this is depending on how the structure of that particular grant-making or board entity would exist. The devil's in the details. I think we've got a solid start to the proposal, but we'd like to sit down with you to fashion it in such a way that enables that to be done in a more routine and systematic fashion.
Alright, Mr. Toll, before we get to you, let's get to council and see where we're headed in this. So, I'm not sure, I think I heard yes, you'd like to continue the conversation? Sure. Okay. Councilwoman Woodward?
I'm all for continuing this conversation. This is my ward, the library is in my ward, so, there's a number of people in my ward who have a lot of questions about this. Parking is the number one question, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I don't see parking in this plan. Am I wrong about that?
There's an expanded parking. In fact, actually, that's one of the better win-win scenarios that comes out of this. The roadway would be essentially moved to be closer to the building to enable people with wheelchairs access to the building. So, for example, right now, that wall that exists of greenstone, that would be moved. That wall that prevents older folks that have difficulty with mobility, that denies them the access to the building, that would form the new entryway. And in fact, you could repurpose that greenstone to build a bridge to get people into that building. As a parent that drops up.
Really, let's not try to debate the specifics of it. It was an issue raised that would need to be discussed as part of this conversation.
Sure.
So I think that's what we're trying to do, is see what are the issues.
Yeah.
And whether council's willing to engage in a discussion, and you're willing to engage in a discussion to try to
Absolutely.
resolve those. But let's not try to resolve the issue tonight if we,
No.
we probably
No,
not
but
gonna get that far.
yes, the roadway would be expanded and possibly in such a way that would enable a single lane drop off for folks at Manitou Springs Elementary School.
So parking is an issue that needs
That
some
would be
conversation.
improved.
Ms. Wilbur, anything else?
No, I mean, I'm willing to discuss it further.
I think we should discuss it further. I think there's other things that need to be said without going into them right now.
Alright, and I'd be glad to discuss it with one caveat. I am absolutely not sure how, well, first of all, let me ask you this question. Is it still that this ballot language has to be firmed up by July 2nd?
Before Independence Day.
Before Independence Day, so between now and July 2nd, we have to figure out the ballot language such that it has to be submitted to the county clerk by then.
So, it will be submitted by then, so yes, the homework will be in on time.
Okay, we have all of 3 meetings left, I think, is that right, between now and then? Do you envision, council, that these meetings would be during both our work sessions, special meetings? How do we get this done? That's a question.
I was gonna say, I mean,
That's a question of, what's your pleasure in terms of how you would like to physically get this done? Well, we could have a public meeting, that doesn't help us to talk about it, but there could be,
So we are conducting as a separate matter, community engagement on the Carnegie Expansion Building. I believe it's June 26th.
So it's not gonna talk about the rest of the tax though?
No.
If I understand it.
That is correct. The
Are
rest
you
of the
gonna have any
initiative.
discussion between now and July 2nd about the tax? Any public discussion whatsoever, other than at this meeting, about the tax?
Couple of points, beyond the discussions that we have individually. So for example, I would say that we don't have sort of the convening authority that the city council does, so we aren't having large open public meetings.
Well,
No.
you're having an open public
Yeah.
meeting that you're convening in the library. What I'm suggesting is you might want to expand that, to have that discuss the tax, not just the library,
That's
if that's the proposal.
That's a good idea, but as you pointed out, July 2nd is approaching rapidly, and we feel very strongly that we have a very robust, good ballot measure to begin with. We would like to refine it with you. I mean, that's sort of what we're here to ask.
You don't want, see, we generally would get the input from the community, business community, residents,
Yeah.
etc. How do we do that between now and July 2nd?
We can, that is certainly something that we can work on, and we're open to working on that. However, we're mindful that this sort of effort can be picked apart when it's in its infancy, that the infant can be smothered in the cradle.
But this infant's gonna grow up to an adult on July 2nd. It's not gonna
That's
change
correct.
after that, it's gonna be an adult.
That's correct, and we're very happy to see that child grow up to be an adult. 30 years old, in fact.
Hold on, Mr. Joel. So, council, what's your pleasure? Do you wanna just put this on our agenda next Tuesday and have a conversation about it?
Yeah,
What would you like to do?
I thought we were gonna be discussing it more tonight, because the time was short, so certainly put it on the agenda for next week, if we're gonna do anything with it.
We can discuss, we have 30 minutes for it, and then to confirm that.
Yeah, I mean, we probably have a little bit more time now if you have specific questions.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So we can go
I'm not
through
as
some
entertaining as the
specific
rodeo
questions
gals.
tonight. And then I'm hearing a suggestion to put it on for next Tuesday on a work session. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, next Tuesday.
What?
I kinda thought it would be, Gary said he'd be willing to talk with them, I thought he would meet separately with them and then come back and give recommendations to council, that's how I interpreted it, but that's just how I interpreted it, so.
And I'm not sure about that. I don't know whether that should be.
So this is an important question. So is it reflective of the whole body to have a couple of members of council sit down with us initially and then move forward, or no?
No, I think it should be all the council. Just
Okay.
have a meeting, hash out what the problems are, what the
Okay.
issues are. You either like them and incorporate them,
Yeah.
or you don't, and you move forward.
So-
Pretty simple.
So, would that then, is your intent then that council would be the one who would put it on as opposed to a petition from a citizen's petition?
Yeah, I mean, they would rather city council put it on because it shows a more cohesive community, but, at the end of the day, they're gonna do it no matter what.
Well, you'd have to go through the initiative process, the
Correct.
signatures.
Right, my concern is, as I stated earlier, is I'm just very concerned, city council, being the ones to back this when we have not done a good evaluation of all the other competing, issues that we have. So, the timing is problematic. No matter how we look at it, the timing is very problematic for council to, take this on unless we're willing, and we could be, willing to, just say, yep, this is our top priority, but that's gotten council into trouble before when they did that, so, and you talk about being picked apart, trust me, it can be picked apart just as easily after it's
No, I
installed,
understand.
so.
I understand.
Ms. Kavanaugh, do you anticipate that you're going to come to council next Tuesday with a revised proposal? Or are you coming to
We will.
council with the proposal that you gave us?
So, at the very least, we could revise, we've already, had conversations this past Sunday about how we might revise it to simplify it a bit. And we could have that prepared for you in your read ahead packets for next Tuesday so that you're not being ambushed on Tuesday. We're mindful that that's problematic. You wanna-
Ms. Johnson?
Well, I think that the trick was too that in terms of negotiation, you're right. If the city doesn't wanna put it on the ballot, no matter how we negotiate, I think that does impact how we negotiate. So I think that's just something to consider, that's all.
So I have problems with the negotiation term. I think this should be a collaborative, collective, putting the best forth, as opposed to we give this, you give that, we give this, you give that. I don't see this as a negotiation.
I
see
think
this
it's
as a
hard, cause we love it so
compromise.
much, we think it is amazing.
I
but
understand
that's
that.
the-
But if you're looking for us to participate, to me, it would feel better to be a collaborative process, not a negotiated process.
No, I agree, but I just think we think it is collaborative and we think it's fantastic.
Well,
So I think
in
that's
terms
the
of your
difference.
approach with us, you're referring to as a negotiation, not the project itself.
Right.
The approach with us. Are you willing to have a collaborative discussion as opposed to a negotiated discussion about, yeah, we'll negotiate at this point, if you negotiate at that point, it's creating the best that we can.
It's a
work.
different
I
word
agree,
for the same
but I
thing.
do think it is, but I think the end result is that I think we would like that conversation of how can the city support this. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so, hold on, Mr. Hodges, just 1 second here. And if I understand the issues that I've heard between this week and, between last week and this week, are certainly parking issues. Details of distribution are pretty significant.
Yes.
The proposal was pretty lax in terms of the details of distribution and how that money comes in and goes out. And that as an issue I've heard. How this fits into the other city priorities is an issue that I've heard, and how the city would be able to perhaps benefit from this tax in terms of other city projects. I would throw out a consideration, and this is gonna probably not go over well. But a number of people have said to me, has there been a discussion about remodeling just the existing building to meet the needs that you described? And I asked Mr. Spears that. He didn't know, but he was gonna try to get an answer. As
So-
far as he knew, the discussion was
Yeah,
always
so-
expand, let's put forth an expansion,
So-
as opposed to let's remodel the existing structure.
Current fire capacity is 18. That building was never designed for chairs or people with mobility issues. It never was.
Well, it can be
it-
designed for all of that,
It would
potentially?
No, it can't.
The occupancy would not include the staff, there'd be enough for the staff to show up, but that no one could come in.
Yeah.
The-
Well,
According to
I'm
fire,
raising
just
that as
according
a
to
question,
fire.
I didn't know if there was an answer or not. If there is, great. If
It-
there's not, maybe you.
It's a question that's been asked, but I mean, frankly, I just don't know where to begin. So Florissant has a library of 7,600 square feet. Ours is 2,600 square feet.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, it doesn't make sense.
Any other topics that need to be high on the list in terms of the topics we wanna try to address next week? And Mr. Stoll,
Yeah,
if you could avoid, we're trying to narrow down what we're gonna do next week.
I do think that I can help.
Narrow down what we're gonna do next week? Okay. Let me ask Councilwoman Wilbur, first come on up.
I'm just gonna ask one question, and this came up in discussions with my ward this weekend, and I reached out to former council members because I'm only in 18 months, and I know this was discussed before I was here. But was Hiawatha Gardens ever considered as a new site for a library? And would you consider that?
Couple thoughts. I'm also relatively new here, but to have a Carnegie building like that is a gem. There's only about 1,900 of them in the United States, as I understand it. I'm sure someone's Googling it over my shoulder, and I've gotten that figure wrong. But to hold on to and preserve that was and is, I think, and should be important to the community. So the design that was selected a few years ago reflects that heritage.
So I
Hold on,
agree with you, but I'm just wondering if that was considered and if that would be added to the list, or if that's off the table. I'm just curious.
So a couple of things. One, we can discuss all of this with Kono when we do that. So we have 2 discussions already set up just to talk about the Carnegie piece. But I just wanted to say that in Moringa, where I grew up, it's true. Our library did move out of the Carnegie, and our Carnegie building is used for storage for the city. And I think we definitely can have that conversation about turning it into something like that. But I think that we have to understand that if it's not accessible, it will just be storage or something, which I think is okay if we decide to do that as a community. But I just want you to be aware that.
I don't think it's an either or proposition. You can fund, you could consider Hiawatha. It's just a consideration. All the
Right.
people who have plans for Hiawatha are Googling over my shoulder right now. I'm actually emailing me, but that's okay. And you can consider that and consider restoring the Carnegie building. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, and I'm just wondering, and have your plans been, have you gone through HPC? Not, yes, you have.
So yeah, and that was one other thing that I hesitated to ask, but this process started in 2015. It's gone through public feedback, 2 public sessions, historic. It's been through 3 of the boards and commissions in the city, and then voted 6-0 unanimously by city council 2 years ago, February of 2017. So to some degree, there's community consensus on this building expansion.
My guess is, Mr. Kavanaugh, that we would need to start that process again. Ms. Johnson would indicate that any development that has been dormant for more than a certain period of time is not a valid application. Is that?
I'm not sure exactly of the timeframes, but I'm pretty sure you would probably have to go through that process again since it's been 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
You can't just put forth a plan and then
Historic
sit on it
preservation.
forever and then go back and say, no, this is already.
January of 2017 is when it was approved by historic
I
preservation.
think it's a year.
Okay.
Anyway,
Well,
something,
Maybe 2
that's an
years
issue
at
to look at.
max.
Yeah.
So you
So
need to
thi-
look into that.
to be blunt, I mean, this is part of the problem, is the turnover in city government every 2 years, and then,
It's not a
so,
turnover issue, Mr. Kavanaugh, it's in our codes.
yeah, we'll get it done.
It's not a turnover issue.
So,
Alright, so that's something that we would need to think about is in terms of the process we'd have to go through. Mr. Toll, did you have a comment you'd like to make? We have about 6 minutes probably on us. Not that you get all 6. Mr. Hodges wants some of it.
Okay, no, actually, okay. Arts, culture, and heritage, it's our creative spirit.
Mr. Toll.
What?
We're only narrowing down.
All of you, I have some things to say about this, and if I need to look at some notes, let me do it.
Fine.
Okay. One is Manitou needs success. There's a positive view of the vision, and Match is part of that process, not all of it. The Match team has listened to you last week. We spent 2 hours trying to go toward you, trying to deal with your priority list, and we have done that. But right now, you don't know any of the things that we've talked about. That one of the things here that's really possible here is that it's not about the specifics, it's about how we use the money. And what I'm saying is Match, art, culture, and heritage is equally important to you as it is to the artists or the residents or the visitors. And that there's ways around this. And that's why if we do it in public meetings, we're not going to get that. And I would like an opportunity just to share ideas with City Council. Because, for instance, we could have it where half the match money went for match projects like that were related to the city, like the streetscape of Lover's Lane, or the historic preservation of Hiawatha, or the COG. There are various things that are on your list that you want done that this money could go toward, as well as the library. So instead of thinking of it in terms of all these projects, maybe it's a matter of thinking about how the money is distributed. One half or a certain amount go through City Council, where I'm relating to your issues, Jay, about having it be priorities that you want. But the other half, and we're the ones that are going to do the work to help this ballot measure pass, could be for things like the MAC and parts that are the heart and soul of Manitou. So I just wanted to say that we're thinking too narrowly here, and I think we need to come together with a little more trust, a little more dialogue, not necessarily in public, and then present something to the public. I definitely want the public to know and to have input. But sometimes we need to just talk about this. I don't think you know where we're at, and that's why we have asked that communication go on.
Could you tell us where you're at?
What? No, because I only have 2 minutes left.
Well, we'll give you 3. Go ahead. Just give us a
Okay.
hint.
But by the way, I can't because I'm only a member of the team. But what I'm saying is we have gone toward you a lot, and you don't even know that.
Well, so
And
when would we learn that?
I'm saying that we just have a meeting here with whatever city council wants to come and whatever match people want to come, and we just have a dialogue. And I am looking for consensus.
So
Sorry for all that emotion.
Mr. Hodges, real quick, do you have anything to add? Again, not for or against the library, just talk about the process for the moment.
Talk about the process. Randy Hodges, businesses at 711 Manitou Avenue, 906 Manitou Avenue. When are the businesses gonna get to talk about this? We're the ones who are gonna be collecting the tax. You know, do we get a voice in this to say whether we wanna collect that tax or not? You know, this is like extortion of our business base. We try and build up our business, we work on bringing people in on the shoulder season and the off season or nearby locals and come up here, and if we just keep raising the taxes, the sales taxes, they're not gonna wanna come shop in our stores and stuff. You know, we've talked about the Carnegie being a gem. In its current state, it is. I really think we need to discuss moving the library to flatland where we don't have all this money that we have to spend for ADA compliance. You know, that thing is on that slope. It's gonna take a lot of money and effort to make it ADA compliant. If we did something down at Hiawatha Gardens where it's nice and flat, you know, much less expensive to make ADA compliance.
Thank you, Mr. Hodges. Good question about the business community. You want to comment on how you bring them into the conversation?
Well, the packet from last week reflected a letter from the Chamber of Commerce in support of the wider proposal, so I think they have. And beyond that, like I mentioned earlier, this puts the nonprofits in town. It aligns their interests with the business community. So those dead seasons, artists, folks that are talking about our history and our heritage, they're trying to draw visitors during those dead seasons because they profit a bit. You know, 3 cents out of every $10, a penny a latte. They're only getting 3 cents out of every $10 that he's collecting, frankly. So I think putting those two groups together in some way. Sorry, that's a little distracting. I actually think that this is a win for both, frankly. And one other point, when people come to shop and have fun and enjoy themselves in Manitou Springs.
Kevin, the reasons of why this is good for the businesses wasn't my question. My question is, when do they get to participate in the conversation, not when do they get to be told that this is good for them. The question is, when do you get to hear them?
I just wanted to clarify something quickly, that the letter that Leslie wrote was in support of the Rock Castle, not the ballot measure in general.
Okay, so I think it's been raised, when do they get to be part of the conversation at the table, is really the question. Not that it's good or bad for them, but how do you bring them to the table?
So far on an individual basis by members of our small committee, we're conducting some of that right now, and beyond that, we're prepared to have that conversation on an ongoing basis, not limited to Tuesday evenings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it has to be part of the conversation between now and July 2nd, such that council would know that they have contributed to the ballot language, or at least are in support of in some way of the ballot language.
Exceptional point. We will work to try and make that a possibility.
Okay, that would be good.
Yeah.
So, I heard a couple different things. Mr. Toll had suggested maybe a smaller group together. I've heard from Councilman Rohr that it should be the entire council. What's your pleasure? Next Tuesday or something before that? Next Tuesday. Next Tuesday? Next Tuesday. All right. So, would you be able to get us something by next Wednesday? No.
It's certainly earlier than that, yeah.
Which would give us some clue about what Mr. Toll had mentioned, and if we could get that into the packet, that would be great.
Yeah.
You can send it to me.
Absolutely.
That would be great.
How much time, Mr. Mayor?
Lots.
I know. Lots, I'll just write that down.
Hold on 1 second, let's see what we got.
We have the employee handbook, we have an executive session.
June 11th. An hour?
Okay.
It's
45 minutes to an hour, does that seem about right?
Sounds fantastic. If that's what you have to spare, we'd love
We
it.
don't, but we'll try to figure it out.
Okay.
Thank you very
We'll
much.
put it in there.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else on that topic? All right, we'll call item H3, SP Plus contract and work plan. Ms. Johnson, I believe that's you.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else who's here for that item, we'll take a second if you'd like to leave. You're more than welcome to stay. The exciting part is coming up. All right. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. purpose of this item is to take action on a proposed professional services agreement with SP Plus for parking program management for the remainder of the 2019 calendar year. Just a little bit of background for those here this evening. The City of Manitou Springs entered into a 5-year professional services agreement with SP Plus for public parking program management in March of 2013. This agreement expired in March of 2018. The agreement was, a draft agreement was brought to the City Council at the April 9th work session, during which there were numerous concerns expressed, and staff and SP Plus were asked to come back with an agreement for the remainder of 2019, including a more detailed budget breakdown and work plan. The 6-month agreement was brought to the May 28th City Council work session for further discussion, and there was consensus that the agreement should be placed on the June 4th regular City Council agenda for action. So this afternoon I distributed an updated version. There really aren't a lot of changes from the agreement that was discussed at the work session, primarily in section Roman numeral 3B to 6-month proration of the budget. And then the numbers under that section are changed from 27,290 to 18,790, with a monthly payment changed from 4,548.33 to 3,131.66, and that is related to the change in section E of that Roman numeral 3, which adds the incentive fee back in. And that's what changed the monthly total.
Ms. Johnson, is there some reason why these KPIs, the incentive fees, are not part of this? Do we still need 30 days to nail those down, or are those going to be the same as what were proposed initially?
Yeah, I don't think we need 30 days because they've already been provided to us.
That's what I thought. Okay. Anything else on the contract?
Signature block was changed for the SP Plus, and then we removed the language regarding reservations as requested. I apologize for, I thought I took out some of the commentary in the back, so the budget stuff doesn't look pretty, but they have provided us with a clean copy of the budget. Maybe the copy in front of you now has that. One in the packet does not look pretty. That's it.
All right. Any questions from Ms. Johnson?
Question?
Yes, Mr. Hodges.
Randy Hodges, Chairman of the Metro Parking District. How is the Metro District written into this contract, and what can we expect for our portion of the payments to be? Has that been addressed? I haven't been hearing that yet, and I don't know if we've been a part of that conversation.
That's a good question. Were you aware, Mr. Hodges, what was the language? You might know this, given your background. Was there language in the prior contract that addressed Metro?
Well, when the SP Plus contract was first developed, Jack Benson kind of, I'm not sure if he used a calculator or if he just plucked a number out of the air of what the Metro District would pay for our portion of the management. And you know, the Metro District is totally good with paying our portion, you know, if we can just make sure it's proportional to the number of parking spaces that's being managed as part of the big picture.
My understanding, there's 2 separate documents that outline the arrangements between the city and the Metro. One is the IGA, they're both IGAs, but there are 2 separate documents.
Yeah.
And do those documents spell out that issue?
Yeah, and it has not been, I guess, looked at in any detail. I think I mentioned that at one of the Metro board meetings, since it was originated.
Right.
And so we've been talking about looking at it again, but it is a separate agreement apart from the IGA that you and I have been talking
Right,
about.
and the IGA we're gonna talk about tomorrow doesn't address this,
No,
the
no, no, it's
fees
a separate
associated.
agreement. Do you have, would you like me to bring a copy of the agreement tomorrow?
Certainly,
Okay,
yeah,
I can do that.
okay.
I can do that. But, we haven't gone very far in it because there's a lot of detail, obviously, trying to get SP Plus in place.
Mm-hmm.
But about the basis, original basis for it, cause it was a flat, it was a flat dollar amount. It wasn't based upon, the level of activity involved from SP Plus support, cause it's not just about parking spaces. It's also about turnover and revenue tends to be probably a better predictor of how much work is associated with handling a parking lot than just the number of spaces.
Right.
And so, without going into a whole lot of detail, that is on a list of things to be looked at, but we have not looked at it in any detail yet.
Okay, and I get all that, I totally understand, but we just wanna, we need to know how much
You
we're gonna
bet.
be paying, and we
You
need to
bet.
be part of that
You bet,
negotiation.
and we need, yes, and we will do that.
Very good, thank you.
Sounds like hopefully starting tomorrow. Anybody else from council have any questions concerning the contract? If not, would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the SP Plus contract and work plan as stated in the version sent via email by our planning director this afternoon.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second, any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Councilman Todd has not joined us back again.
No, he's having some technical problems, and so we're trying to work them out.
Item 4, ordinance number 0519, an ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, amending chapter 3.32 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning procurement procedures when federal funds are involved. Ms. Davis, I'm assuming this is your item.
Right, it's kind of a combination of my item and Jeff's item, because the auditor brought up last year that
Thank you,
there's
Ms. Johnson.
certain
Thank you.
Thank you.
deficiencies in the procurement code, and it did not comply with, the single audit standards. And, so we brought this to Jeff, and Jeff rewrote the ordinance, and I presented it to the auditor for his approval, and he did not have any comments about any issues with it, and so now it's being brought to city council for, official approval by ordinance.
Wonderful. Any questions concerning ordinance 0519?
I did have a question.
Yes.
I was intrigued that it had no local or geographic preference shall be given to any bidder except for engineering and architecture. Why is that?
Those are the federal standards for federal procurement projects, so.
But why are architecture and engineering
They're
excluded? Do you have
accepted,
any idea?
yeah, they're accepted, I'm not sure why,
Okay,
honestly.
so it's just, we're basically just implementing federal.
Right.
Federal requirements, they're all legislators.
Ooh, snap. Okay, thank you. I mean, I think that's important for us to know, since we do have a preference here for local, and we need to make sure that we don't overlap that into our federal grant contracts.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
All right, any other questions concerning this ordinance? If not, would entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance number 0519, an ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, amending chapter 3.32 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning procurement procedures when federal funds are involved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion is second, any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Item 5, ordinance number 0619, an ordinance amending section 1.60.010 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning conflict of interest. I ask that this item be put on the agenda, and we have before us a provision. There is a provision in our municipal code now pertaining to conflict of interest. The section, there are two sections in there. One section basically says you can't participate in the process and then financially benefit from that process. This section, as I'll read, indicates that elected official may not or shall not participate in city employment selection process and subsequently apply for or accept employment in the position that was the subject of such process. For purpose of this section, an official participates in the city employment selection process when an official is involved in setting job duties, compensation, selection criteria, selection procedures, candidate evaluations, candidate interviews, candidate selection, or similar matters. So that's the provision that I've asked be considered tonight. Questions, comments, thoughts? No one from council wants to comment on it?
Are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
I move we approve ordinance number 0619 and ordinance amending section 1.60.010 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning conflicts of interest.
There's a motion, is there a second? I will second the motion. There's a motion, second, any further discussion? Ms. Morrison?
It's a question,
Would you like to come on up?
Everyone. I'm Marcy Morrison and live at 302 Sutherland Place. I have a question about the ordinance. Number one, I think I noted, I'm not sure how many people saw copies of it because it was on the second shelf and hard to go through all the paperwork. But I do question section 3. Now you might think that that is just a throwaway section, but I question, because this came up, and if I may, unfortunately talk about a little history. My history is that when I was in the legislature, this issue came up about using the language that it is deemed necessary for the protection of health, welfare, and safety of the community. Am I correct?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Well,
Section 3 of the ordinance.
Section 3 of the ordinance.
Oh, just the standard, oh.
Well, it isn't
Yeah.
standard in the sense that that came up in the legislature a few years ago, a couple of years ago, and I was not even in the legislature then, but there was the challenge from some of the legislators that some of the issues that were being brought before the legislature automatically had this language in there. Every bill, when I was in the legislature, had this language. And the challenge was, there was no need for many of the issues that these bills were presented, or when they were presented to us, to have protection for the health, welfare, and safety of the community. I would suggest, Mr. Mayor, my suggestion would be that it be removed, because if you have a concern about conflict of interest, I would say that you would have to make a case to the public as to why it is going to involve the health and welfare and safety of the majority of your community, if not all of the community. That would be one of the points I would like you to have some discussion with, and at least determine that that is an unnecessary particular section.
Thank you, Mrs. Morrison.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Ms. Morrison, are you asking that it be taken out of all our resolutions
No.
and ordinances, or just this one?
Well, I haven't, to be honest, Councilwoman Fortune, I have not gone through all of the ordinances. I don't remember.
It is in all of ours today.
All of them.
Well, I've just noticed that it has been, as reading all the ordinances that we have, that we're reviewing today, I'm 99% certain it's in all of them. So it's a
basically,
standard line.
yeah, stock language that we've had in the
Yeah.
ordinances. I think the city's used it in that form probably since before I was here even, but it may not be necessary. I don't think it makes an ordinance valid or invalid. You know, so if you take it out, I don't think it means it's not necessary. It's basically legislation. So it's an interesting point. I've never actually really put a lot of thought into those kinds of saving clauses. So.
Well, if you put several hours of discussion that I heard, you might feel differently,
Yeah.
but seriously, it's added words. I don't think, we talk about having discussion that's meaningful, that the public understands, that they're willing to read online or whatever. This is a section really that has, to me, no real validity. And I just bringing that up. You may not agree with me, but I think the essence of your ordinance, of your topic, the first paragraph, you are seeking some issue, you are talking about some tightening up, frankly, of whether I agree with it or not. I'm not even going there, Mr. Mayor. But I do really object to adding this into your ordinances, this one and every one, unless if it's a flood, a damage, something dealing with a hazard, I can understand it. This is not a hazard-like ordinance.
So, Mrs. Morris, let me just give you my interpretation of welfare. What welfare involves a number of different things, including trust. I think the welfare of our community is determined by the trust that the community has in its leaders. I think it's determined by how we spend our money. I think there are a number of ways that the welfare of the community is impacted when there are things that either are conflict of interest or appearance of impropriety or all of the above, I think affects the welfare of our community. I think we're seeing that right now. And so that would be my suggestion. It's not a technical welfare in a medical sense, but it certainly is a welfare in terms of the emotional health of the community, the divisiveness of the community. Those things are all impacted by this ordinance. And so maybe it's not appropriate in every case, and you may be right, but to me, the welfare of the community is impacted by actions that I believe are reflected in this section.
Can I respond?
Yes, of course.
I'm hearing, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I guess my response would be, as a citizen, as a former politician, as a watcher on the scene of what's going on in our world today, as we all are, I think it is incumbent that when we look at a candidate for any office, we as citizens seriously, I'm trying to think of the right word I want to use, but seriously consider, analyze, listen, pay attention to whom you're voting for. I don't necessarily think that putting that this language in the ordinance is going to make any difference. That's my point. I think the council's role, or anybody's role in public life, is to do the right thing, to listen to the people of their community or their district or whatever. But I think this, and that was the point that was finally made in the legislature, that this was unnecessary language, because you're hoping that when you elect people to office, they are precisely knowing that they are protecting the public with the kind of voting and the kind of value they bring to the office. I just think this is unnecessary.
That particular section, I understand that. Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Any other discussion from council? We have a motion, a second. I'm surprised that there isn't anybody on city council who would like to talk for or against this item. Nobody wants to talk for or against this item. All right. So we have a motion, a second. Unless there's any further discussion, I'm not hearing. Please vote. Motion passes 4-2, or motion defeated 4-2. All right. We will take a 5-minute break. We do have some refreshments out there, and so join us for some refreshments.
Hey, how are you? What? Oh.
Is whether or not, council supports, the community engagement around those community projects and then bring out the 5 to 10, whatever, around the prioritization. Okay, that's fine, but you know what I mean, right? We're not looking at water projects or wastewater projects or, you know, dedicated funding projects. Well, this week I gotta go through things, I gotta look at everything that's happened, and what I'd like to do is send it out for next week. I need to make myself out. I was gonna say like it said, but I'm
I'm glad you helped out. You got any help with that? So now we got a responsibility, right? So, let's see what happens. My son, no, he was teenage, so he's just well, I hope that
I'm rooting for you. It'll just be somewhere else.
right around this time, one part of supposed to carry spirits of God to bring it to so,
I mean, you're just raising your hands.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's go ahead and bring the meeting back to order, please. We'll call item 6, ordinance number 0719, an ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, repealing and reenacting Title 16 of Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning subdivisions to implement hazard mitigation provisions. Ms. Berthold?
Good evening, Mayor Duray and council members. We're here for the first reading of this project, and we have most of our project team here this evening, staff and Waverly Claw with DOLA. And so just to let you know, the materials that you got are all the same as last week for the work session except for the zoning draft, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. So I'll just provide a fairly brief presentation to hit the high points and prompt you in case you have some questions and comments. Again, we're proposing to repeal and replace Title 16 subdivision and Title 18 zoning. This presentation will cover both, they're pretty intertwined. And so again, our focus was really on hazard mitigation and risk reduction and implementing policies and actions from Plan Manitou. Some familiar images of some of our hazards, interrelated flooding and debris flow, geologic hazards. The city has had to purchase a number of home sites, and you can see here some fixes that homeowners have undertaken. And then finally, wildfire, I think probably our least predictable hazard, where we're proposing some new tools. Just to look again at the timeline for the project, we've been at this about 2 years. And so we're at the very end, the yellow box, our first of second readings in the adoption process. And just wanted to review again our project approach. This is really bringing together some of our Plan Manitou policies and actions, as well as what we heard from the community, from Council Planning Commission. So striking a balance between hazard mitigation and property rights, strengthening our development codes to address risk, improving our mapping for project review and also for citizens, developing a scaled back approach that's suitable for smaller projects, protecting natural features through site planning, preserving flexibility and choice through landscaping and choosing specialists, and understanding benefits and costs to both property owners and community. So starting with Title 16 subdivision, the changes to this title were less extensive than the other one, and I really see this as two different parts. The first few points are really changes that we've made to simplify existing code provisions and clarify processes and criteria. So for instance, for the minor subdivision approval, that can be approved by the planning director, but we wanted to provide criteria for when it can be referred to planning commission. And then I'd say the second piece is really targeted revisions to our code to reduce hazard risk, promote mitigation. And so this includes new evaluation criteria to address natural and geologic hazards, and for instance with preliminary plat process requiring a fire protection plan, which kind of has a menu of options. Title 18 zoning is the second chapter. The changes to this chapter are more extensive. So this includes new evaluation criteria for every development process to address natural hazards, and also providing some approval criteria where there were none before. So really the main focus is this new chapter 1810, Natural Hazards Risk Reduction, which consolidates our existing provisions for natural hazards and then brings in some new ones. And so it includes requirements to evaluate and mitigate hazards through development review, which does apply to property improvement permits, for the most part with some exemptions. So that is new, and includes limits of disturbance criteria to guide development to appropriate locations on site. Generally, preserving natural features is consistent with reducing, say, geologic and hazard impact. Just to remind you, this is the table that I just handed out that sort of graphically goes through the different development applications. And so I'll just review how the three natural hazards are addressed in our review process briefly. Start with how we do it now and then what's being proposed. So for floodplain, we have some new tools. We currently have review by our regional floodplain administrator for any impacts to the floodplain. And we're proposing to add local review with 3 or 4 different criteria to address issues such as drainage and making sure there's safe access to and from a site. I mean, these are things that we think we're in a better position to evaluate than regional. And next, geologic hazards. We proposed a tiered approach to really make the steps more consistent with the level of impact. And so currently we do require a geologic hazards plan and report for steep slopes in hillside low density residential, as well as for our major applications. And so again, we're proposing a tiered approach. So we have tiers 1 through 3. Tier 3 is what we have now. And so we're proposing 2 more lower scale tiers. Tier 1 is really an initial screening using existing data. And tier 2 is hazard mitigation, basically through common construction practices like drainage, foundations, that kind of thing. And next, wildfire. So we do have some new tools for wildfire. And so currently our fire department reviews building plans for compliance with the International Fire Code. That's primarily structural review. Also looking at access issues. So we're proposing some new landscaping recommendations, and our fire department will conduct site assessments and sort of find a balance between the ideal standard, listen to what the property owner's values are. We know our sites and our development does not lend itself in many cases to the sort of ideal fire mitigation where you have these different zones because we have small parcels. Planning department will administer and enforce these standards. So again, landscaping is a useful tool for us for wildfire mitigation, also for some geologic applications. And so here are sort of some of the different layers where we've introduced some new landscaping provisions. The initial provision is landscaping for instance, for a single family home or building permit. In that case, the applicant would provide a concept plan, wouldn't require a professional to do that or engineer input. On up to our more higher level review, a full landscaping plan, and that's what we would require for a larger development. And so we made some changes to emphasize sustainable plants and design, incorporate the defensible space standards, and also added an alternative landscape plan provision. So we can apply this a little bit more flexibly for redevelopment sites. So staff did identify some changes to make to the previous draft. I'd say they're fairly minor. Our planning director, Kim Johnson, worked with an engineer to revise the slope calculation for hillside low density, make it more clear, so we included that update. Also, some updates to the terminology for geologic professionals, and a minor update to our landscape plan. And that's probably pretty good coverage of this project for you. And again, the next step that we've mapped out is the second reading and public hearing in 2 weeks from this evening. And so we have our whole team here, except for our co-drafter, Tarek. So happy to answer any questions that you may have of us.
Council, any questions? You did a wonderful job in 10 minutes of boiling down 2 years worth of work, so thank you. Really nice job. Council?
I have a question. I've got mine right here. Sure. Yes, thank you for all this work. I know this is, big for our area. I had some questions about, of course, the landscape plants and all that. I think you really need to clarify in this statement in here, drought tolerant, fire resistant plants, and also allow for other plant types. What does that mean? I mean, you don't have to tell me, I'm just saying that's pretty unclear, and that's in your overview, but to just say drought tolerant doesn't take into consideration that sites are different. And you might live next to the creek like I did for 11 years, and drought tolerant plants aren't really happy right by the creek.
Right.
And so that's a big check out, and I have a real problem with plant lists in general, because plants are always changing, we have new plants coming in, new plants are being introduced, and if you have this like A, B, C, D, this is your choices, that's not gonna work. And it also knocks out things like, what if you wanted to put in a forest guild, you know, like a food forest, or you wanted to put in, make a bog garden? Well, that's not allowed, you know, it's like, it just seems real restrictive for me. And also the community benefits of this is, with your plants, if you're just doing xeriscape and fire resistant, you're not able to do some of these, like build habitat. Some of it could be habitat, but there's plenty of habitat plants like a pinyon pine that's a total fire hazard. Does that mean we're not gonna have any pinyon jays? You know, I mean, it's like, it needs to be, actually, I think it just needs to have the door kicked open and let people bring you their plans, and you could take it on a site-by-site basis, because everybody's property is different. Even the house next door can be different from where the water flows under the soil, where it comes off the next door neighbor's building, where it's super, super dry, whatever, and it's not a one-size-fits-all. So, you know, that to me, and it would be easier if you just said, bring us your landscape plan, and then have someone, like we were talking horses a couple of weeks ago, get someone who knows horses to talk to you about your horse. You know, get someone who actually knows plants, like the city gardener is a perfect example of someone who's got many years as a master gardener. She's certified in permaculture, she can talk this stuff, and she can look at a site and, you know, evaluate it. Rather than saying, your house is like my house, like your house, like your house, like your house, and you all have the same choices. The other thing about that is it's boring. I had a gardener drive all the way across the country and said, every yard looks the same. She was so disappointed, she'd never left the state. She went to the East Coast and came back, and she was just like, what are we doing? Everybody's planting the same stupid plants. So, that's my
Okay,
whole rant.
so that's a lot of different points, and hopefully I caught them. So, just to back up a little bit, we have been working with the arborist on the plant list, and I think that's a great idea to involve her in the review of the landscape.
Yeah, but there's more than
plans.
just trees involved.
Yes. So, let's see, in terms, okay, so to back up, the first point I think was noting the local ecology. You have different zones, you have riparian zones, upland, etc. So I think all the requirements in the different sections, nothing requires all drought resistant, xeriscape, or fire resistant. That would be, it's really how and where you plant those types of plants, so that would be really around the perimeter of the structures. We do have a provision to be consistent with the local area, but I think emphasizing local ecology would probably be helpful.
Habitats and food plants, and I think you were gonna send me the approved plant list. And by the way, I still have the tree list for Manitou. It's a notebook about this big, all about the trees from the tree board. I think I do. I either have it or Corrine has it. And I don't know if you guys even know it exists. So, but I just think to like say this is all you have, and this is what we're allowing is probably a mistake. The climate's changing, there's gonna be different trees coming in, trees are leaving, maples are having a hard time, you know, half the trees are dead on the top, so to say that you can only plant these doesn't make sense to me as a lifelong gardener.
So, just to address the plant list, and Councilmember Elder had suggested that we use the Colorado State University Extension plant list. So I did check that out. It's fairly brief, and it's only native plants. And so we have a list that was developed.
That's not right. I can get you other plant lists if you'd like.
Okay.
That's why if you would send me what you have, I can at least give you my best go on it. Not like I'm the authority, but I do have concerns about that.
Okay, I thought I did that, but I will definitely resend it.
I'll look again.
So I just wanted to note that the list that we have is quite long, and it's not just natives, but I think we would want to be consistent, and certainly you made a great point about the fact that preferred landscaping materials change over time as we learn different things
So
and species evolve.
would part of the answer to this to be put a last list that says, or any other appropriate plants based upon the location, or something like that? Is that what?
Well, if you're gonna review these anyway, you might as well review their plant list and have suggested plants rather than this is it. You know, and, you know, I just think it's restrictive and I think it's, if you don't give if you don't let a gardener plant what they wanna plant, they'll just break the law. They'll just say, hey, I'm gonna plant this anyway, because I know the planning department, they don't garden, they don't know anything about this plant, and it's not on the list. I'm just saying, you know, it's not on the list and I'm gonna plant it. So I think less is more with this. Less is more. Don't give them like you have to plant these. Less is more. These are suggested. We like these. Colorado State University likes these. But bring us your plan. If you wanna plant bananas, people are looking at that. Fig trees. Are fig trees on your list? Probably not. I have a fig tree that's been living outdoors for 3 years. Getting ready to plant another one.
Okay.
So that's what I mean, and it wouldn't be on the list, so am I violating the law, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right, okay.
Thanks.
Got it. Okay, and so the plant list isn't exactly part of this action, so we still have time to work on that.
Yeah, it was just in your comments and.
Yeah, but I think we would like to emphasize, the local ecology, the microclimate that people are working with the habitat.
And food security.
And food security.
All right, any other questions? Does that cover the topic for that?
Pretty much. I could talk about this
I
all
know you
night.
could, right, right. Councilman Moore.
Yeah, so I found my section, it was, the geologic hazards section of your presentation, and
Can you give us a page number?
I'm on one of the attachments, about halfway down. I don't have her presentation up, so I can't tell you what part of it. It was geologic hazard section. I am currently on the summary of proposed code changes document, and it has no page number, but looks like maybe page 2. So, your first part about what we do now was all about 17-degree slope in hillside, low density residential. The new 3-tiered approach that applies to all zones.
Yes.
Alright, that was unclear that it was changing to be all zones, not instead of just the HDR.
So, but our current process applies to other zones for major projects, like a major development plan or subdivision.
Anything else? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear that everybody, when I looked at the slide, it wasn't as clear to me as I thought it was going to be. That's all.
Hopefully the ordinance is clear.
I'm sure if you looked at the ordinance without having seen the old stuff, it'll be as clear as it could probably be to somebody trying to do it, yes.
And I think this probably really helps illustrate the geologic hazard approach too. And so this is for any zone.
Which is why the pre-planning meeting would start too far.
All right, any other questions? Any other questions concerning this ordinance?
So are Becky's suggestions going to be incorporated?
I assume that they would come back to us next, for second reading? Either come back to us with a specific proposal or come back to us and say, we've looked at it, we think this is enough, or
That's what we'll do.
some response to it.
Yeah, I think we have the general gist. I can think of at least one change we should make to the ordinance. The other topic is the plant list and how we
Which is not part of the
structure that.
ordinance.
Correct. It's a separate document that we would have in our office for reference purposes.
I just wanna say, I think it's important to that everyone understands and clarify that I understand this. This is only for new development or redevelopment of certain sizes of things. So it's not that, people are restricted in what they can, plant in general, cause most of the city is already built out. Secondly, I am happy to see restrictions. I think restrictions are important because we have to balance the freedom to plant anything you want versus the freedom of the city burning down. So the suggestions I heard you guys saying in terms of how to write, Councilwoman Elder's concerns, to, take those two balances to requirements, I very much appreciate and think you're on the right track. Thank you.
You're welcome. And it's true
Any
that
other questions? Yes.
some natives are very fire prone. And
Yes.
so we would only want those located outside the building perimeter. So it's not like you can't have them, but it's really the location.
Now, I understand that it's for new development, but a lot of people are redeveloping, which would put them back into this. So is there a grandfathering in clause? If you have, someone was telling me on the break about how many pinyon trees they have, and if they decided to redevelop, would someone walk on and go, well, you have to remove, you know, so many square feet of your pinions because it doesn't fit. So there is a grandfathering of existing landscape?
I would say it's not grandfathering, but it's taking an approach that's more suitable to our, infill built out scenario, where I think the fire department would give advice about mitigating those trees, how to maintain them, to decrease the density. We're really trying to decrease the magnitude of a fire here. We can't prevent it, but we're really trying to scale back the fuels to some level.
But we're also
Alright.
having huge habitat.
So let's talk about what else is gonna come back to us next week. So I think we're gonna get some feedback next week about some possible changes. Is there anything else that we need to adjust between now and then?
I can't think of anything, at least from what I've heard this evening.
Alright, any other questions from council? Alright, would entertain a motion concerning ordinance number 0719.
This is first reading, correct?
It is?
Okay. I move we approve ordinance number, can we take them both, cause this was your whole presentation, correct?
Correct.
Can we take them
I
both?
would
Do we have to
take
approve?
them separately.
Separately,
Two
okay.
separate motions.
Alright, then let me back up to the other one. I move we approve ordinance number 0719, an ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, repealing and reenacting Title 16 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning subdivisions to implement hazards mitigation provisions.
Is there a second?
Second.
So motion and second, any further discussion? If not, please vote. Councilman Smith, there you go. Motion passes 6-0. Alright, we will now take up item 7, which is ordinance number 0819, an ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, repealing and reenacting Title 18 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning zoning to implement hazards mitigation provisions. I think you've given us the summary of that as well. Any questions concerning this particular ordinance? If not, I'm sorry. I would entertain a motion.
I was just gonna say, I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 0819, ordinance of the city of Manitou Springs, Colorado, repealing and reenacting Title 18 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning zoning to implement hazard mitigation provisions.
Yes, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you also. I appreciate your help and everybody who's involved in this project. It's been a long one, but we are almost to the finish line, sort of. And the fun starts.
Thank you.
Alright, item I, hearings, ordinance number 0419, an ordinance repealing chapter 5.08 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning medical marijuana centers, and repealing and reenacting chapter 5.09 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning retail marijuana stores and marijuana testing facilities. Ms. Johnson, are you going to give us just a very, very brief summary since we've been dealing with this a number of times? What do we need to know tonight that we don't know?
Thank you. So the purpose, as indicated, is to hold a public hearing and conduct second reading for ordinance number 0419, amending medical and retail marijuana regulations. So really, there's only a few things that have changed since this was before the city council. One is it eliminates the requirement that locations must be reviewed every 5 years to determine if the location is still appropriate. requires facilities with a single license to apply for a dual license by October 2019. And section 5.09.320, related to administration having the authority to adopt, amend, alter, and repeal administrative rules, has been deleted. So those are really all the changes. I just do want to note for those here this evening that the Planning Commission, though this is not a zoning regulation, did review this and have general support for the ordinance, and that both existing marijuana establishments commented on the proposed ordinance, and their comments were taken into consideration in the final code revisions.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to comment for, against, or otherwise concerning this ordinance? Oh, come on, somebody has something. Nothing? All right. Sure. Close the public hearing.
I do have something.
Oh!
I was waiting for you to close that. I didn't want to give him a chance to get in there after I said something. Just as a note, I did speak with Emerald Field's attorney. It was about section 5.09.100B. Just quickly pull that. I'm going to pull two versions up so I can make sure that I'm looking at the correct version.
Hold on one second.
5.09.100B.
Dual operation.
This is the dual operation heading. And so Councilmember Rohr had made a motion to have on 90 days as the deadline for them to get their application in, or to get their actual application approved. In talking to the attorney for Emerald Fields, he said, well, we can't control how much they take to review this. So could we change that to have the application actually submitted by that date? Because they have to wait until July 1st to even submit. It could take some time to get it approved. And so we go back and forth with some language that I think works, and if you don't mind, I would read it to you for the record so we actually have the correct language, which would be in the final version, which isn't exactly the version I think you have in your packet. So I think it was different because I haven't actually compared the two, but let me make sure, sorry.
The one in the packet has a blank.
Okay.
Has a blank 2019.
Okay, and that was the one that you I read to you at the end of the week. Is that correct? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I thought I put the most recent version, but that's not what's in here.
Let me just verify it. Sure. It actually is the correct version in the packet. But we have a blank. And the reason why there's a blank there is because I wanted to make sure that's like the effective date of the ordinance. When you're reading the code, you're not going to know what 90 days runs from.
It's true.
So I want to just put in, we'll put in the date the ordinance becomes effective, which is 5 days after publication. So if you give us authority to add that date in, I think it'll be like in a week or so, just so it's actually in your code. You can review it. Let me just make sure I got that.
So this indicates that they shall have till October 1st, 2019 to file the complete application for a license.
That is the correct language, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Kim, sorry.
That's okay.
It's pretty much 90 days. I thought you said you wanted longer.
No, this is correct.
Just to file the application, not to actually be operating.
The last version had everything approved by,
Right.
but the version in your package is the correct language, so sorry, that's all I had.
All right. Any other questions, comments from City Council? Would entertain a motion concerning ordinance 0419.
I move we approve ordinance number 0419, an ordinance repealing chapter 5.08 of Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning medical marijuana centers and repealing and reenacting chapter 5.09 of the Manitou Springs Municipal Code concerning retail marijuana stores and marijuana testing facilities.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there a motion and a second? Any further discussion? If not, please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Item J. 1, discussion regarding city administrator employment agreement. So, Ms. Ash had sent us a draft of an employment agreement with Councilman Todd, a week or so ago, maybe?
Right, and I'm sending hard copies.
Thank Ms. Anthony, she snuck out here before I left the finger.
Leah, has this changed since what you
No.
sent us the other day?
No, I just wanted to make sure they had something to write on. No, I just gotta, it's not heavy. I'm just trying not to beat up Kim. Okay.
So I think what we're gonna try to do is capture any thoughts that we have concerning this contract. There may or may not be changes that we'd like to suggest, concerning this draft of the contract.
I'm ready.
Yes.
In paragraph 1B, duties and residency, I'm wondering if it needs further definition on the term employed shall not be construed to include occasional teaching, writing, or consulting as approved by the council performed on the administrator's time off. Well, perhaps just being approved by the council. So that would indicate that any outside employment, I suppose, would need to be approved by the council prior to the city administrator engaging in outside employment.
That's correct.
Okay, so then it doesn't need further definition. I think it does cover it then if we approve it all.
Anybody else have any suggested changes or comments? All right, I had a number of them that I'd sent out earlier. One is I would suggest that we change the vacation leave for B.
That's 4B?
4B. Be no more than 2 weeks for the first 6 months and an additional 2 weeks after 6 months. And we're gonna just list them here and then we can decide which ones go in and which ones don't. So we'll get to that. The second one that I had was to change the vacation leave credited at the date of commencement to 0. Currently, it has that at the date you start, you get, how much, 100 hours? 100 hours from the get-go.
What section is that, just for my edification?
That would be section 4B. 4B? No, that's not right.
4B? 4B.
I thought you said 4D. No, 4B.
4B, okay,
Yeah.
so just change, I'm gonna change vacation leave credited to 0?
Yes.
Okay.
The other provision I was asking to be changed was eliminating the severance package to 0. My rationale is that generally a severance package is given to someone who moves to the community, uproots his family, et cetera, takes the chance of the political climate changing. In this case, I suspect that Councilman Todd is first not relocating, second understands the circumstances, and third would end up with a huge windfall, huge meaning huge to me, $60,000 if that provision stays in. If the new council in January decides to terminate him, he'd end up with $60,000 and this is drafted. To me, that doesn't seem quite right.
I would also add to that we are incurring a huge potential risk by hiring him. The city is incurring a risk by hiring him. So we shouldn't bear any additional burden to that.
I think my next provision takes care of it. In terms of his not being able to work full-time, we haven't had any discussion with Mr. Todd about his current work. I have no idea what he plans to do with regard to his current work or how he's going to incorporate that into his full-time job. And then the last thing I had was to set performance goals within 30 days, not 3 months, and to have reviews in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months, as opposed to just a review annually.
Okay, hold on just a
So
minute.
those are the changes I was going to
Within
suggest.
30 days. What section is that?
That is section,
9.
9.
And then performance reviews at 3, 6, and 9?
Yeah, 3, 6, 9, and 12. Every
Okay,
page is
performance
quarterly.
reviews. 3. Okay.
So let's take these one at a time. Are there any others? Any other suggestions?
Well, me and time, I always have an issue with that, arguing with you guys before, but I honestly think that, first year, it should be 2 weeks. And then from there after, if you complete your first year, then, you can do additional time if that.
You're Alright, Councilman Smith is suggesting as opposed to the first 2 weeks, you get, first 6 months, you get 2 weeks. He's suggesting for the first year, you get 2 weeks.
Vacation 2 weeks.
And I had broken it up into 6 month
Right.
increments.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Councilman Moore?
So, Mr. Ashton, started the negotiations with Mr. Todd?
He has a copy of it, but I haven't based on the resolution, so we haven't really started talking about any of the details yet. I've given him this copy, but we haven't started talking about it yet.
Yes.
And part of it was until today, I thought the resolution was dated as of last week, so I thought it would be next week. And then it was pointed out to me that it was dated to the 21st, so that was my misunderstanding. But he hasn't really been in town for me to talk to other than, and our correspondence has been a little bit difficult to actually chat, so.
Councilwoman Alders?
Although we have shared emails.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Councilman Moore, let me just, did you have anything further? No, this is not your question, okay.
okay. Well, I don't like most of this. I don't know why we are treating Bob so incredibly different. The vacation, that's fine. But why the vacation leave credit to 0? I mean, why would that seem punitive and we're giving any other person who had come in? The package that we gave Kirby was incredibly generous. So, why would we eliminate severance package to 0? He's not moving here, but he's giving up his job, and if the council in 6 months decides, sorry Bob, this is not working out, then he needs that severance pay to stay on his feet until he can recover whatever employment he may be able to recover. This seems like let's discourage Bob in every avenue we can discourage him in. Let's see. Oh, and the risk, I don't know if you'd like to say more about the risks. I personally don't think Bob is a risk. He might be, you might not be comfortable with him, he might be an unknown, but from what I'm hearing from the people in town, they want Bob Todd to be the city administrator, and I don't see why we're putting up all these foils and stumbling blocks. So, what was the last one? I'm sorry. Oh,
I'm moving it,
current
you can
job.
see.
Oh, why would we, if we had a 90-day review for the city administrators, why are we putting Bob on 30-day review? Why don't we extend him?
No, it wasn't, it's not 30 days, it's 90 days.
Performance goals.
That's right, do the performance goals.
Right, so why are we shortening that when we give anybody else, somebody we don't even know, we'll give you 90 days because we don't know you, but we know you, we're giving you 30 days. Because for what reason? That makes no sense to me.
This is to create his goals, not that he accomplishes them.
He's
Just
probably already got them written.
I'm sure he does.
I don't care. Why do we still have this for him? The Bob Todd that I know would say, I've already got my performance goals, here's what they are.
Well, then he'll bring them to us and we'll have the
That's right,
conversation.
so why do we need this?
Well, it's in the contract.
You are changing it from 90 days to 30 days.
Correct, I'd like to see him come forth with the goals before 90 days, and it sounds
But
like
I'm
he's already
asking
got
you
them written.
why, well, I don't
Why?
know that, I'm just saying, why are we treating Bob differently than some person we don't even know?
Yeah,
That makes no sense to me, Ken,
Sure, let me
it
explain.
just makes no sense.
So supposedly, the group that wants to hire Councilman Todd believes that he can hit the ground running because he's a member of the community, because he's been on council, and he knows what to do tomorrow. Somebody coming in from out of state or otherwise doesn't know the community, doesn't know the government, and has to develop those. Councilman Todd has that knowledge.
I think Councilman Todd has some other hurdles that maybe somebody coming from out of state wouldn't have. And I don't see, to me, it's just not the right welcome card to put out to your sea of like, we're gonna treat you so differently, we are cutting off 60 days of your ability to put together the proper performance plan. What I know about Bob Todd is he's very meticulous, he's gonna look at everything, he might need 90 days.
Okay?
He might not, he might already have it written out, I just don't understand why this is coming down and why this sounds to me punitive and
I
what's
would
the
say
word?
that Leah is taking this to negotiate with Bob, so it's not the final word.
But why do we take something that's already gonna be different from what, first off, what you've already sent him, and from what I could not believe what we gave Kirby. I just could not believe it, just in my little, and I didn't see anything because,
Now's
I
your chance
think
to
that's
say
the way,
something.
well, I don't like this, that's what I'm saying. Why are we doing this?
Well, if you didn't like Kirby, what else would you like to put in here, if you didn't like this agreement?
I'm saying Kirby had like the red carpet and the limousines and all the dancing girls and the elephants and he had everything. So now we have a devoted local resident who would like to take this challenge, and it is a big challenge. It's bigger now than it was. And we're doing all this to him. So I'm sorry, and I'm not gonna say anymore. I just think this is mean-spirited. This is not what I would think would be in our highest and best level of operation to do this to Bob Todd. I think it might handicap his ability to perform his services, and maybe that's the reason why we're doing this. I have no idea.
I would say my opinion on this is I'm trying to serve the city to the best of my ability, and I think that this is, gets closer, if we're going to hire him, then this gets a little bit closer to better serving the city. So that is my goal. It's not to handicap Bob, but it is to protect the city and ultimately the council as well. So your characterization does not fit me.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, but if you were to take a job on this level, and you were leaving your employment to take a job on this level, and we say, we're sorry, Nancy, you're not getting any severance pay, because we just don't think you need it, in case in 6 weeks,
That's
6
not
months,
why
if the council upsets your apple cart, you're just whistling Dixie
That's
Belle,
not-
and I'm really sorry.
That's not why that I would recommend to eliminate the severance pay. I think that we are putting the city at significant legal risk by hiring Bob. So that's why I don't wanna see us.
This fixes that? This fixes that?
No, what this fixes, it fixes a sitting council person from benefiting to the tune of $120,000, excuse me. It fixes him not leaving this council and walking away in 6 months with $120,000 of city money. That's what it attempts to fix.
Oh my God, Ken. I have no idea what Bob makes right now. He might make $200,000. We don't know that. I think, there's a lot of ifs in here, and it just seems dark, cold, and not within my realm of what I would think is ethical. You can think that there's risks. What I'm hearing from my constituents, they want Bob Todd. I haven't heard all the people that are talking to you. I don't know if they're talking on Facebook or on Nextdoor, which I never go to. I'm not a social media person. I'm face to face, I guess, and 30-minute phone calls from people I don't even know who are going, Bob Todd, Bob Todd, Bob Todd. So I'm trying to react to that, and then I'm looking at this, going, what's the goal?
So let's see if there's consensus. Yes or no, leave in the severance package as is, or change it to reflect something else. It could be zero, or it could be something in between them.
I think we should leave it the way it is. It's very similar to what we gave Kirby, but not nearly as generous. And go with Bob Todd.
Okay.
The Bob Todd I know is an ethical person. He's a good Christian man. He loves Manitou. He's lived here for 20-some years. The woman he loves lives here. His house is here. He's involved in the community. He's incredibly brilliant. He's probably smarter than all of us put together. And we are giving him all these stumbling blocks and putting cement shoes on him and tossing him in the river going, good luck swimming, Bob. That's what I feel. And I'm gonna quit talking.
All right, anybody else wanna weigh in on that provision, or any other provision?
That particular provision, sure. Didn't we at one point, offer a sliding scale on that? If you were here for less than a year, it was X, and as time went on, it became less and less. That might be the compromise we're looking to do.
That sounds great.
That must have been a previous agreement?
Yeah,
Can you do that?
I can't recall, we can do that.
Okay, I'm gonna add it here. So look at sliding scale.
That's something to think about anyway, since obviously we're at an impasse with 0 and a lot, so.
Any other
I think
comments?
that may have actually been your prior city manager's contracts, but it wasn't the one we provided to Joe's, right? I think that would be correct.
And I suspect that was as a
I just,
result of
I
Joe
just assigned that to
negotiating
you.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll make all these changes, no
No,
problem.
that's okay, well, we're not making any yet, I think we
Well,
probably
just-
have to decide on them because
Yep, so,
some of them are mutually
whatever
exclusive.
can be agreed upon.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the vacation, we'll see what he says.
Which version of it?
There's
two up there.
I'm not okay with Councilman Smith's just 2 weeks, I'm okay with the other one. And I'm okay with, leave credited coming into 0, that's fine. Because, well, we accrue it, you just don't get it. Everybody accrues it in some way, shape, or form, even.
8 hours a week, a month?
Yeah,
No,
that's if you do the
I
160.
don't remember, well, to
Something
get,
like that.
It's
Yeah.
in there, for what it is.
yeah, but the
Or
total
8
of,
hours per month, it accrues.
Yeah, but
that,
that's,
is that
that's to
sick,
get to
vacation or
160
sick leave?
days. That's vacation.
Vacation.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, sick leave.
Yeah, sick leave is 8 hours per month. I think the accrual for vacation is different.
Is it different on the years?
Yeah,
Like, it goes up, more years you have, more years of service, you get more
right.
days vacation.
It's not in here, is that?
That's kinda where I'm at.
So that, it was the sick leave that it.
Yeah, I'm fine doing that. And the last one to really talk about is the performance goal one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can buy setting performance goals in 30 days. I'm not sure that we need to do 3-month reviews of those goals.
What would you like to see?
Now, every council meeting, you're evaluating their performance in some way, shape, or form. So doing a performance review process, you know, every 3 months, well, probably smart business perspective, it's not what we do for anybody else. On the other hand, you know, hiring somebody, you might want to check in a little bit more often. I just think every 3 months is excessive. I could see doing one in 6 months and then the yearly, and then figuring out a schedule at that point.
Okay. Anything else?
Sorry.
Councilman Moore, any other thoughts on it?
No.
Councilman Sid, did you have something to add to that?
It just, performance review 6 months then annually, does that capture it, Jay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I would have to disagree with Jay on that one, because I think as a council, since I've been on council, that's one of our failures, that if we hold ourselves to a guideline maybe more often, then we may not have had the position that we were in for 4 years. But we have to look at, we have to have, cause we never really had somewhere to track that, and we had to, you know, it took forever to get a resolution of what we needed. So no matter who it is, I'm not, you know,
Sure.
I just think that, and like say, I'm a big one on, going up to the ranks with the vacation time too, and I understand where you're at, but I could live with that. I'm not a big one on, I've never been, and I've always lost that battle, so I have to say it again, I've never been a big one on, where am I at now?
Can you read?
Severance package. I just never have been a big one on that, cause I feel if you come in here to do your job, no matter if it's whomever, Leah, whomever, that if you're afraid to come in here to do your job, then I don't really feel I need to offer you something in case you don't make it. If you don't make it, it's on your own merits. That's me. So.
I can buy the performance goals. I think we might be, if we tie into our work plan better, you know, it's gonna take time out of our work plan too, to be doing all this stuff. But we also have better HR processes than we've ever had, and it's just could tie in a lot better. I'm okay with it.
And I think that, you know, we might do it there and then we go, wow, that's too much. We can spin it out, but at least we've got something we're tracking, and that's.
Well, you know, the other thing, just to point out, and Gary, you're familiar with this, and I'm not certainly driving it, but one of the things is, when you have somebody that's new in a position, sometimes you have you have a 3-month and a 6-month,
Sure.
and, that's typically how it's done in a lot of larger organizations, and then after they've been on board for a year, then you go to mid-year and then annual reviews. And the mid-year was always just a requirement to make sure the discussion happened, you know, because otherwise it was just easy to get through 12 months. So that may, you know, I would just offer that as a more of a organizational practice, that might be an option too.
You can always do reviews, this is just the ones you are agreeing to do as
Right,
well.
so, we put this in a contract, we wanna change it. How do we, easy to amend said
You can amend
contract?
the contract, or you can even just say we wanna talk to you next week. There's no requirement that you,
Only do it then.
you still have authority to require other reviews as well.
And I'm okay with after the first year, it being less frequent. I wouldn't necessarily see this happening, you know, in year 3, 4, 5. So my intention was primarily the first year.
My handwriting gets worse as the evening goes on.
All right, other comments concerning these or any other provisions that anybody else would like to suggest?
I'm a fan of a sliding scale for severance. And we can talk about that as part of the negotiation, and I'm sure that Bob will have some feedback on that.
So it's more time, less severance, is that how it works?
Yes.
More time on the job, less severance?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanna make sure I understand.
This job is not like many jobs. It is you serve with the will of the council. If that's one thing I've learned in my 18 months, it's that. And I think that we can phase out severance over time, but to do 0 is, not something I would agree with. I like the sliding scale part. Otherwise, I agree, with the performance reviews, 6 months then annually. Performance goals within 30 days, and is that where you guys are all going? Is that where we are with that? I mean, you're just saying he sets the performance goals in 30 days. When you say he sets them, or she, whoever is hired, and this is the contract they have in front of them, you're asking them to set them. You're not saying that you're going to.
They've all agreed to them.
Exactly.
It's actually not he doesn't set them, city council sets them.
Right, but he has to bring forth goals for you all to look at, right?
Well, it
does
doesn't
it?
say, it just says city council shall set performance goals for and review and evaluate the performance of the administrator on an annual basis. Such goal setting shall occur no later than 3 months from the commencement date and such annual reviews and so forth. So that's our work.
Yeah. Not 30 days then. If this contract that you've already given him says 3 months.
But he knows that it's a draft.
I understand
Based
that it's
upon
a
the
draft.
direction.
But this again seems like a punitive thing, and I think 90 days is much more fair.
I mean, we could do it in 30 days, but I don't really count it out.
Okay, any other comments on?
Sure, the contract says not later than 90 days, so
Yeah.
sometime between 0 and 90 has to be done, it could be 30.
Could be 2 weeks.
Okay.
Question
Anything else?
on, and this, well, I don't know if Jeff can answer this in open session, hopefully, but, on paragraph 5C, is there any way to beef that up to reduce our, if we are sued or other legal action is brought, I mean, that's pretty generic right now, that we would have to pay severance.
It now reads the administrator is terminated based on his conviction for a criminal act. That's the section you're referring to.
That's the section I'm referring to.
What section is that?
5C.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen different versions of this where, you know, say misconduct in office, gross negligence, two different standards there. You could always revise that as you think is appropriate. Because right now it's just limited to basically criminal acts.
Right.
So there are other standards, like it could be misconduct in office, I've seen any matters involving dishonesty or fraud. I've seen it say gross negligence in his job duties as determined by city council, those kinds of.
Is there any way we can say something like, if the administrator is sued as a result of actions taken on city council prior to, or is that?
It's difficult because you generally have, he's generally identified and insured for his acts taken in his role as city council. I could work on some language that would address an issue.
If we're gonna pay a severance pay, I would like to have that. I do consider us to be at risk, and so I wouldn't like to see him gone.
So you're thinking about having some language saying if the city is named in a lawsuit resulting from individual's acts during his tenure as city council member, no severance will be paid, something like that.
Something along those lines, yeah.
You put it in there?
Not being a lawyer,
Yeah.
I don't know what the right language would be, but I would like to reduce our exposure and risk in that event from having to pay a severance.
I see.
Just because you're named in a lawsuit,
Doesn't mean that you're gonna end up being
Doesn't mean.
found liable.
No, but we've incurred expenses as a result of that. Potentially. Anyway, we've got it listed up there.
I mean, we can put conditions, pretty much any condition on here that's, that we can determine to be true or not, and so there's no rule that you can't put something in here, so you can do that.
All right, anything else to go up on the list? Any other discussion on
City
items?
named in lawsuit based on some action precludes severance.
Right, yeah,
I don't know
I'll
what-
make it sound
okay.
better.
Good.
And we will presumably review the contract after you've had an opportunity to discuss this with Councilman Todd and
Right.
figure out where we're going.
Right, but it would be good if I kinda had a box around things, so are we in agreement that we're gonna, on the vacation, for example? Is there I think you are, which kinda makes it a little more difficult for me to negotiate a contract that reflects what you want me to do. Which was kind of the reason why I wanted to do this, was so that I at least had some boundaries. If there are boundaries that make a difference to you all, so. I thought I heard agreement on the more performance reviews in the first year. Did I hear that? No? Okay, Becky says no, so.
Not for me.
Okay.
it's got a term agreement, I think,
Right,
so you might have to pull this to see where that lands.
okay.
We'll have a discussion when it comes back to us.
Okay. I guess at this point, I'll work with Bob on setting a time to sit down and I have some more information. I'll wait, Jeff is gonna give me some information on the,
On the little,
5C, at least, so just some language, just so I have it.
Yeah, no, typically in this process, you would be having, discussions regarding how to negotiate a contract in executive session, in private, and you'd be outlining the terms for how an offer's gonna be made. And then you'd be making an offer, and then you'd be having the conversations that come back to you for another executive session. Whether is this appropriate, you get feedback as you go along. This is a very unusual process to do this in public, and it's very difficult to negotiate a contract when we don't know what city council wants. So we can have just a sort of freewheeling conversation, the city council doesn't agree with any of these things, what do you think, Bob, and then come back to you with what Bob and Leah kinda come up with. But it's not a good way to negotiate a contract, it's unusual, you should agree upon what you think you wanna offer, somehow. majority vote or not.
We could take each one of these and just go to a vote on it.
It makes sense to me to do it that way, so at least we're not bringing something to them rather than like we have a really great option for you or a really bad option for you. And I don't know if city council is gonna support this or not, but everyone's just talking about it. It's a really difficult way to negotiate a contract. So I think it might be better to work our way through them just so we can get some agreement, be it the majority or not.
So let's take a vacation, and so the two proposals on there were 2 weeks the first 6 months, 2 weeks, for the second 6 months. The second proposal is 2 weeks period. So let's find out how many would support the first 2 weeks and 2 weeks.
Okay, can I just make there's something in this contract too, which would be the third option. So there's what's in the year,
I
that's
think
what
that's
was
right.
sent to
Right, that's true.
I
him.
think that's right.
And then there's the proposals that you have made, Ken, and what I believe Gary has made.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. So
So-
let's put up there 4 weeks, which is what is in the contract. It doesn't actually say 4 weeks.
Well, I'll make a note to just leave as is, then I'll just note.
Right.
Right.
That's one too.
Yeah. So, here, let me move it over here so I have something to write on.
Okay, so, let's just figure this. All in favor of leaving the contract as is? No, not everything, just vacation. I'm not seeing any hands. All in favor of 2 weeks and 2 weeks?
I could accept that,
2?
cause that's 4 weeks in 1 year. 2 weeks in the first 6 months and 2 weeks in the second 6 months. And then after that, he gets 4 weeks.
And then after that, he gets paid.
I can agree with that.
It's, yeah.
Can I just ask a question? Why are we doing this right now when we've extended this contract to him and we're expecting him to come back?
I haven't extended it to him. I've just provided it as information for a starting point. It's not, we haven't discussed it at all.
But you're assuming he's gonna come back with his revisions, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't we wait until that happens and then go through this process of voting on all these options plus what he's recommended? And I'm just curious about the process. I just don't wanna waste time on this part right now, that maybe we're not wasting time, but to me, you've sent this to him.
Mm-hmm.
You can semantically debate whether that's extending him an offer or asking him to review it, or I'm not sure what difference that makes. But that option is not here tonight, what he is asking us to do. And I think the time would be better spent with this feedback from council, this contract, and hit what he wants, and then we can make quicker work of it, unless I'm wrong, and you guys can correct me.
That's certainly one way to do it, but what Mr. Parker was suggesting is typically an offer is made, a counter offer is made, then there's discussion around that. I think the problem is this is perceived to be an offer, and it wasn't. And so it probably technically shouldn't have gone out and been potentially perceived as an offer.
Okay.
It should have been that council should agree as to what the offer should be. It should be given to him, and then he would propose something different.
But I thought the resolution said that we empowered Leah to use previous contracts as a guide and to make him an offer. Is that not what did I misunderstand that?
So basically, you authorize her to negotiate. Like typically, legally, an offer is something that if you accept it, it's binding, like an offer to be accepted. And the way we've structured this is that this is a negotiation period. The actual formal offer after negotiation gets approved by city council, and then the contract's executed if we get out an agreement.
I don't think I can make an offer.
Okay, but we asked you to negotiate, correct? And so, but here we are before any negotiation has happened, going through these what we will and won't accept, and I'm not tracking with that. I think the process was, we authorized you to negotiate. And then you're bringing back what his terms are, and we have some ideas of what we want, and then that discussion happens. I don't understand why that process wouldn't work. Maybe one of you can explain that to me, or maybe Jeff.
Well, no, I think typically, if you're authorized to negotiate, they need to know what you're negotiating from. And I've never seen a city administrator, I've done this a dozen times or so, where there's inconsistent guidance given by the governing body as to what is gonna be offered initially, what's gonna be the initial starting point of the negotiations. And so I think it's difficult for Leah to negotiate when she's not sure what you're gonna ultimately be agreeable to you. It's very difficult to negotiate when you don't know what your parameters are.
Okay, I agree with you.
I think that was the point of this.
Why are we doing it this way then? All of a sudden, you've seen thousands of these, and now we're not doing it that way. So my question is, why are we doing it this way? When it isn't the way we've done it before, and it isn't the way Jeff sees it normally done.
Because the council decided to delegate that responsibility that council would have to our city administrator, and the city administrator has said, I'd like some guidance from council about that delegation.
Right, but Jeff is suggesting that guidance normally comes through executive session, correct?
Typically, what we'd be doing here would be, we'd be talking about what, you can start with, offer 100,000, but we're willing to go to 120. And that wouldn't be the kind of thing you do in an open session. I mean, these are more, this is an unusual process because of the way this whole thing sort of develops. So we're now in a situation where, trying to kind of make sure we're getting the right kind of guidance from city council, because not everybody's on the same page. So
I asked the question I asked at the beginning, because I had a similar thought. And then I decided that Leah is doing what we asked her to do. She is in charge of negotiating, and so as part of that, she's decided she needs guidance from somebody, and she's chosen us to be the somebody. And so, yeah, we threw it to her, and she punted it right back, which is totally appropriate thing to do. We didn't tell her not to do it. Just wasn't probably a well thought out idea to not have it punted back. But it's she's asking a body for guidance. She maybe could have asked some people she used to work with, some former coworkers, some terms and help her out. But she chose. But she also chose this body.
And that was included. But they're not gonna be the decision makers.
So she also chose this body to also give her guidance, and I think it's not an unreasonable thing.
You don't want to be negotiating and then have it after a week or two of work, and then come to city council. We don't agree with that. I think that was Leah's concern. I don't want to speak for you, Leah, but
No.
I mean, if some councilors have different ideas about what should be offered, that's hard for us to proceed.
I appreciate you guys taking the time to explain it to me. I do.
Yeah, because I really would like for it to be successful and come back with something that is agreeable.
I'm just really confused because you sent this to Bob already and it says employment agreement. Did you send it to him with a post-it note that says this is not an offer to you?
Yeah, he knows. I mean, we've had that discussion, yes.
Okay, well this just seems crazy to me.
How much more direction do you think you need?
It's okay to say all of it.
Well, I mean, it just, I don't feel like I have a good understanding of exactly what people want. But I'll do the best I can. I just thought that if I had some boundaries, it would kind of help me figure out exactly where I could
Would you like more
have a discussion.
Would you like more solid lines around what's already been discussed? Do we need to go further than what we've already done?
Well, there's some, do we have agreement that we need to look at, sliding scale severance? I mean, I didn't hear that. I heard everything from 0 to sliding scale to leave it the same. I heard You know, I mean, I guess, you know, maybe what I'm hearing is that I'm not sure that I can, maybe it's going to be the overall agreement as opposed to individual components of it that are agreeable or disagreeable, because I may not be able to actually get consensus around particular items. And so to that extent, then, if you all give me leverage to do what I think is best and not worry about what's up there, then that's what I'll do. But understand that it's not because I'm purposely going, I don't wanna hear from you. It's that this doesn't help me right now. I mean, the fact that they get discussed does, so that I know that they're things that you all have an interest in, but they don't really help me in terms of, you know, if I get a counter offer and based on what's in here and Bob comes back and goes, I feel like I need 8 weeks vacation, you know, my comment back is, that's probably not gonna fly. I mean, that's pretty much where I'd be from a negotiating standpoint. Beyond that, then trying to figure out where that right place is may be a little bit more difficult. When I say right place, I'm talking about the place where you all can reach agreement as a group about the actual agreement. I mean, I don't wanna draw it out any longer than it needs to either.
So do we want to make decisions on all these individual items as hard and fast rules, or do you wanna leave it kind of as where it is right now, which is just general guidance based upon what she's heard?
That's the question. Anybody have any thoughts?
I would, I guess, think in general rules of what we want. So I think everybody's pretty much looked at that and said, okay, I can live with what's up there. And if she incorporates what's on that page into a contract, then, you know, I would be good with that. To where, okay, if everybody agreed to 2 in 6 months, 2 weeks in 6 months, and 2 weeks in the second 6 months, even though I don't agree with that, I would go with the majority. But, you know, and I'm not a big one for, like I said before, severance pay. I'm just not. I just don't. I'm not there. I never have been. But it's there. So I would just say what we've got written down, if she could incorporate it into a contract and start the negotiations, and either they come back saying, hey, I'm not gonna go with this, or I am, and if we say no, then we know where we're at. That's kind of
You know, what happened last time is we had a lot of give and take on many different parts of it. And some of us got things we really wanted, and sometimes we didn't quite get what we really wanted.
Right.
So, and then it came back from the candidate, totally different crap. And then we all changed our stuff again, and again, we didn't all get all the finer points what we wanted, so going on the assumption that's probably gonna happen again.
Oh, I think, yeah, but I think if we got this list and somehow that can be incorporated into it, then it's gotten everybody's, you know, thoughts and ideas in there, at least as an initial thing, and, you know, and then we can go from there. Either it's gonna be acceptable or it's not. You know, I mean, I don't know.
So, just to add to the confusion perhaps, I was wondering about the time frame for all of this negotiation, and when would this come back to us, and when would Councilman Todd start his
Well,
job? When would he resign,
Yeah.
and et cetera, et cetera?
And those are good questions, and I don't have answers, but now that, since I have the clarification today about the resolution, because I honestly thought that I couldn't have those discussions until next week, that I will, certainly make a concerted effort to reach out to Bob and find out when we can either I prefer to do it in person, but if we need to do it by phone, we will, depending on the schedule. And so I could tentatively put something on the schedule for next week, as a special session, you know, I mean, as early as that, depending on his time frame, and then we can talk about starting dates and resignations.
We don't even have we have no clue about when he's available, do we? How long it's gonna take? He could come back and say, I can't start for 60 or 90 days.
well, the question hasn't been asked, but he knows when I'm leaving, so I
Which is, by the way,
imagine,
June 27th,
right.
just so that you know.
So I would think that he's contemplating that, cause he knows that date.
Maybe. Alright, so where are we, folks?
Well, 2 weeks and 2 weeks is pretty much what's already in the contract, because the contract says accrue at the rate of 4 weeks a year, so it's really pretty much the same.
That's probably the
Right.
same. Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand with the how much you would get the
Start.
yes.
Yeah, I'm okay with 0. Now, we talked about some of us want to eliminate severance package, some think the sliding scale might be better versus what we have in the contract now. And then the other sticking point was the performance goals in 30 days. Contract currently says within 90. We could always say 30 and leave the contract as it is. We could always do 30 and leave it as it is.
Okay.
We would just have to, you would have to put it on the agenda to make it happen, basically, right?
We'd have to police ourselves.
We would have to police ourselves, which we would have to anyway, because
Right.
stuff drops.
And we need to.
We need to. So, and then the other part was the 3, 6, 9 month, kits of performance reviews.
Which I put in for the first year, based on, that
For
was
the first
another
year.
piece.
It's really good practice, actually. So,
I just don't like treating them different from what we were offering.
I know, think of it this way, think of it as we probably should have done it in the contract the whole time,
Exactly.
is really what
We should take
So why don't you take?
we should take the person out.
Ugly.
I'm thinking we should take the person, the name, the person out of this and build a contract that we want,
Good point.
you know, and we forget who past was, any of that.
What we were doing.
Alright.
None of this would be.
Ms. Ash,
Yes,
you need further direction?
I'm just gonna go for it.
Alright.
Afternoons are fun.
Anybody else from council ask? Yes.
Could I ask a question regarding this?
Sure.
I'm just, the
Why
thing
don't you
is,
just introduce yourself?
Alan Delwich, 210 Beal Indivist. I was a little astounded when I heard right off the bat, and maybe I misheard, but it sounded like there was a notion that the council could approve the administrator to do other work on the side by approval.
Yeah, that's currently in the
That-
contract.
Been in the contract.
Okay, that, to me, in what universe we would do something like that when we need a dedicated person, I think that is bizarre. I was an engineer for 40 years. I never got that kind of treatment. It was pretty much, if you're gonna work for me, if you're gonna work for my company, you're gonna work for my company. And I got well compensated, but part of the understanding was you focus on me, on my company, not, to me, that just is inappropriate to have, especially with this kind of high pressure, intense job. I just,
So just, I guess,
It is,
the current,
if you want, go ahead, but it is a little bit more restrictive than you might think it is.
but why have any of it?
here's how it reads. During the term of this agreement, administrator agrees to remain in the exclusive employ of the city and neither to accept nor to become employed by any other employer. The term employed shall not be construed to include occasional teaching, writing, or consulting as approved by the city council, performed on administrator's time off.
So, as I read that, Councilman Todd can, on his own time off, do all of the consulting work he wants to do.
If we
We
approve it.
approve it.
Are you approving each piece of work?
Yeah.
Are you approving that he can just consult in general?
Depends on how the city council approves it.
It doesn't say, how, do we, every time he wants to consult, do we have to approve that? Or do we say, or is council gonna say, we approve you can consult?
If you do it that way, you can go ahead and consult. If you say, you can do this one job that you're requesting to do, then that's what would apply. But this,
It's
I'm just saying,
unclear.
the key here is that this is supposed to be an exclusive employment agreement, not to work for anybody else, except for the occasional side thing, which is, this has been the same thing for all of our city administrators, it's not different language. Where they may do, you know, side things that don't involve their city employment, or, but we can always change it, always change it.
Yeah, I'm just, just an observation, it seems like we're in the realm of maybe 5 times what the median income is for people who work in Manitou. The average run-of-the-mill person, and now we're saying that they also need to have the ability to get more money. To me, it seems way over the top.
I would be okay with, as where it starts, the term of employed, take that last sentence out of there, and just leave it as an exclusive employer of the city manager.
And don't grant any exceptions?
No.
No, I can do other work.
Huh?
I can do other work at work. I have to get approval for certain things, but
Right.
I didn't get approval for this though.
I did. And still, and now I'm starting to go, Leo, why'd you do that?
Did I say it was okay?
Yeah, you
I don't remember that.
But I'm also limited in what's permissible.
Then that gets us into the process of monitoring and overseeing his consulting practice.
Yeah, but it would also, if you have everything, that means somebody couldn't be on a board that might be advantageous
Well, I
to the
don't-
city. It's interesting, it's an interesting thing. Just from my own work experience, I'm okay with the way it's written. It's part of being a boss.
It's also been written like this in other agreements that we've had with previous city administrators, and also written this way for people that we've offered the job to in the past 18 months. So, if we need to change it, we need to change it. But if we're just nitpicking because it's Bob Todd, that's okay.
My comment has nothing to do with Bob, unfortunately, I didn't see earlier contracts or earlier people, I was surprised to see her.
Well,
You'd be amazed how cush they are, it's just amazing.
I just went into the wrong place.
Blew me away.
So, any other?
Nope, I added.
Alright. So, I think we're good with that item. We'll call item K, City Administrative Report.
Okay, I updated you last time, but I have talked with, Lauren Kramer from KRW about the police chief recruitment timeline. Do you all wanna look at the posting in advance? Gary, I wanna talk to you separately about some of your comments.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but,
They were good.
but he has put together a few, ideas and some things that he's gonna go forward with. He's asked me for some information, like what the salary range is, which by the way, I know is between 85 and 119. That's the range for that one from the 2018 compensation study. And also the value of the budget that they're responsible for, which is about 1.6 million. And so he's looking on getting that posting, out and nationally with the idea that we bring in, resumes and applications, and start to narrow that down around mid-July, which he would bring those back to you all to have a review, probably looking at maybe about 10. With the notion that then you all would cull that further sometime in late July, early August, actually, bringing candidates in. And as I mentioned before, it will be a national search. However, he mentioned to me a week ago that he's already had considerable interest expressed locally too. So, and with the notion that you'd have somebody hopefully in place by the end of August. And I had tentatively established an end date for Joe of about August 31st based upon a 3-month, assessment time and also to hire new, but, so that's pretty much how that's gonna go. And if you're okay with those adjustments and things, I was just gonna go ahead and tell him to go ahead with the posting. Because I'm relying on his best effort to make sure that we get as broad a review and then start to cull it down based upon those important factors like you know, can they be an effective emergency manager? Do they have good community involvement skills, at least in terms of community policing and that sort of thing, cause that to me is pretty key here for Manitou. And a number of other issues, experience and supervision and that sort of thing. Okay, so I'll move ahead with that. I just wanted to let you know that we are, Kim and I are working on the public engagement budget. There's a $30,000 line item, and we're trying to kind of go through and figure out exactly how that, at least what portion of the money's been spent, and then what we're looking at, cause it was kind of a lump sum in there. So far, we've identified that IAP2 training that at least 2 people would go to. It's a foundations course for public involvement training. I don't know who those 2 people would be. Kim would probably be one of them. I don't know who the second would be at this point. We've also identified the money, the contractual obligations that we currently have with Kono for at least 3 and probably will be 4. So the Crystal Park Road, support for the community engagement governance work group, and for the short-term rental process. Kono has been involved in that. And then probably the ADU process will also be Kono, but we don't have a contract yet on that. Based on that, that takes up about half of the $30,000, and I have to verify what, if anything's already been charged, because I didn't have a chance to look at that portion of it today, but I just wanted to let you know that that's going on. The recreation center, they're in the process.
Do you wanna talk about the community engagement process for the?
We can talk, thank you for reminding me.
Cause that might be a Kono.
Yeah, the other thing is, I think, there was a request earlier, and Becca's been putting together some really great information about, capital projects and how we might involve the public in a review of those, and I have a lot of information too that I plan on sharing with the group before I'm gone. I just haven't had a chance to put it together. In a prioritization matrix, or some things that could be considered that the public could look at. But these are around those projects. I hesitate to use this word because they're really not discretionary, as in that makes it sound like they're not as important. They are, but they're different, for example, than something that's coming out of the water fund that's about a pipe replacement. So things like the Carnegie Building might be one, Hiawatha Gardens, the Fire Training Center, those kinds of things. And I think right now, Becca said there's like, for the current list, she just gave it to me, it's like 13 projects, and that we would like to look at some of the community engagement process, and I just wanted to get concurrence that you all think that's a good idea. And then we'll Creek Walk, Ruxton Corridor, Soda Springs Master Plan, Wheeler Park, Public Art, City Hall remodel, Ute Chief Gusher, I'm not sure about that one, and disposition of golf carts. So anyway, there's 13 that we would probably, have Kono help us, and so that would be potentially another hit against that budget.
And the reason it's coming out, so council went through a worksheet, we had a discussion about that, but then we had this library thing come. And so we wanted to just confirm that the council wants to continue with what we had started but didn't get very far on.
Right.
Which is the process of engaging the community in this prioritization. So that's, I think, what Lee is asking.
Thank you.
We still want to go forward with that.
You good with that?
We did the worksheet.
Yeah.
Now the question is, do we want to go forward? It probably won't be completed until about September, October-ish, as I understand it. And it also depends on these other ADU and these other issues, but that's generally.
It needs to be done in that period in order to actually make sure it gets in the budget and it's appropriately identified, so.
Right. So everybody okay with moving forward with that? Yes.
I saw heads nod.
Great.
Just a heads up, Roy's been in frequent conversation with me over the last several days since while I was gone. They're putting on a new roof at the rec center, and it's at some points intolerable, so he's had to shut it down a few times. We've tried the noise and the fumes and everything, and so he's been working with Alicia to try to make sure it's out there, that people know. I mean, we haven't gone through a complete closure, just said we're gonna be closed for a few days. I'd asked him how long it was gonna take. I don't think he'd heard from the roofers, but if you hear some feedback we're doing the best we can, but it's making it really miserable for the people who are inside, so. And then finally, sad news, disappointing news, we thought we had this super deputy public services director coming in, made him an offer, he accepted it. Sarah was very familiar with the company that he works for, it's a government contractor, he's working up at Buckley. And they did what she thought they would do, made him a fairly significant counteroffer, and so he turned us down. So now we're having to start over.
After accepting an offer?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, pretty significant, because he was really tired of driving 80 miles each direction.
I did that for a summer.
Well, he's been doing it for years. So,
Alright.
anyway, so we're starting over, unfortunately.
Was there not a second choice?
Well, but they'd already been notified because based on his acceptance.
So we can't go backwards?
You can, but I'm not sure, I'm not sure that that's probably the best direction at this point.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, well,
I did that once, we said there was no second choice.
Okay, anything else?
No.
Council correspondence, Councilman Roy, you want to start?
Talked to Delane, with the Manitou Springs Park Council. Leah, their, pedestal, something fell over with a piece of art on it in 7 Minute Spring. The art is at the yard, which is fine. But what's left in the ground is this metal ring that's rusty and needs to be cleaned up before somebody gets hurt.
In Soda Springs Park?
In 7 Minute Park.
In 7 Minute Park, okay.
Also had an interesting discussion with him regarding Becker's Lane Bridge and talking to Shelley about incorporating some sort of anchors or something for artwork so that you could attach artwork to the bridge if that where it was an installation that made sense. Because that project's not so far along with design work that they probably couldn't figure something out. And so that was a pretty cool thing. I think they need a board member, so I might have somebody for them, but that person might also be interested in the URA, cause you have a board position open?
Yeah, we have several we could fill.
Several?
I mean, we can go from 5 to 11, so
Oh, gotcha.
there's not a set number.
Gotcha, so, I just need to get his contact information to you and to Delane, and most likely gonna meet with Leslie at the chamber on Thursday, so I have an update from the chamber.
Okay.
Yeah, I have some quick, parking and shuttle updates. Shuttle ridership went from being down by about 30% in March, probably because we've had a much wetter winter, but it's now up to 81% over last year. So in April, it really surged, it almost doubled from last April. There's some stats here, I'll pass them down.
81% up?
We're 81% over last year. But it really is just a new thing. There's been some really significant progress, thanks to Michelle and Kim, regarding the discussion about downtown residents and overnight parking and the Carly's Banana Manor solution and other things and other people who wanna talk about solutions for RPPs. There's a memorandum here, if you're interested in seeing it, you can. I think that Kim and Michelle have done a good job of really identifying the challenges to allowing downtown parking on Manitou Avenue and really laid them out, so that we can tackle them one by one, and there's a community engagement process proposed. I think this is great, exciting news. It's a movement, a real substantial movement in the right direction. I don't know where we're gonna get with it, but I think it's really great. Last year, just so you know, there's been discussion at the Transportation Parking Board before about standing vehicles and how this contributes to congestion. So if there's a lot of people standing in their car waiting for a parking space to open up in the Bar Trail, that creates more congestion. It also happens in RPPs that are close to downtown. People just sort of hover, or they decide to drop their family off for ice cream, but they park their car, And so they're thinking also about making some movement to put up some signs. We already have it in our code, I believe, but the police chief is gonna be asked to kind of clarify, in which case, if it all goes through, you would see some no standing signs, and that's mainly to make sure cars just aren't blocking traffic and keep moving. But that's also a good thing, it's also been on their agenda a long time. Revenues are up about 25% over last year at this point. I don't think that's surprising because of the Park Street Bridge falling last year. 90 spaces were out of service for a long time. So the increase that we're seeing over last year at 25% doesn't surprise me because we had a lot more inventory. That's just here's all these papers are here if you would like to see them. By all means, ask me. I did get asked one question that I couldn't answer, which is we did this resolution demonstrating your commitment to incline management, but is there any new updates on that? And you don't have to answer that tonight, but if any of you know, would you email me that so I can share it with the Transportation and Parking Board? Because this was exciting, but if it's just a piece of paper and it doesn't mean that much is happening, I think that's the concern and why I'm being asked to provide what's going on.
So
do you know if they are considering charging for the incline? Maybe they charge for the incline, even on a daily rate, and then maybe have a monthly pass, whatever it is. That's gonna solve a lot of this parking stuff, cause all the people only come here cause it's free. It's like the Garden of the Gods, it's totally overrun, cause it's free.
Well, and that was part of the deed of the person who deeded it to the Garden of the Gods.
But I understand that, but
Right.
that's not the incline.
But the incline, when they were here for a work session about a year ago, they seemed uninterested, but perhaps Ken and Nancy have an update.
I don't have any update.
It was on my list of things to talk about.
I think council needs to have some discussion about who or what needs to be done next.
That was on my list of things to talk about.
Good,
Okay,
we'll let
perfect,
you
thank
talk
you.
about it.
I appreciate that, that's all I have.
Alright.
Someone to talk to me about it, and I just think that's, okay. So, okay, sorry, I didn't mention you.
Well, you can have it back.
I have a, long email, all of my liaisons haven't happened yet this month. This is pretty long, so this is about the cemetery. He's emailed, Ken a couple of times, the local resident. He has 10 of his family members in the cemetery. And he says, the Park and Rec hired a new kid to, I'll just read it. A new kid taking care of the cemetery, knows little to nothing about plant cycles in Colorado. He's from North Carolina, didn't even know what dormancy meant, cutting out generations of dead vines and bushes, etc., devastated the growth of the surrounding fencing, etc., gone for generations by somebody who doesn't understand seasons. I mean, North Carolina can stay green year round. So if it didn't have leaves on it, it was dead, and he cut all this stuff out. His wife recently passed away, he put a stone on the lot. He goes there every single Sunday. He put up silk flowers, jewelry, his own little altar, so to speak. And this kid took all of his stuff and threw it away. All the flowers, all the jewelry, and he was really heartbroken at how anybody could be so callous at the cemetery that works for the city to do this. Let's see, there were 2 other ladies there apparently in tears a week apart for the same reasons. They had been visiting their lost loved ones for many years and had never had this happen to them. And he, let's see, he's very upset. It was brutal. The boy told me he was cutting out all the dead, which was dormant, including all them dead trees, unquote. He too said he got a crash course from the city along with a pair of winter Carhartts. He dug holes in Carolina, that's his only experience as he was a ditch digger. It's insane that the city hires uneducated, inexperienced, unnatural people to do horticultural jobs. He's destroyed what's took generations to grow and violating grieving survivors. Okay, we are very angry. Now the city won't answer my calls. The 2 I know directly responsible, Diane somebody and Eric Dimwit, are totally blowing us off. It took months for Diane to return my many, many calls about a retaining wall issue, only to push it off on this new kid. Then he goes on to say, yes, I forgot to mention those silk flowers were deeply inserted into each of my 10 relative stones to not blow away. They were of the very best, the very expensive and elegant sort. The necklace was handmade by my granddaughter, and she cried, seeing that it wasn't there. Stolen were her words. He's spent 3 decades fixing little things. He does it himself, the steps, fixes the display, uprights the ornaments, trash, tidying up all around through every corner. I spent hundreds of days there, praying, crying, healing, meditating, caring for all those souls. Never has this happened. I'm very willing to trim my own lot myself, or at least pull out the rods holding my flowers for someone to mow, and then replace them when it's done. But to throw in the trash others' belongings is sacrilege and unholy. It was theft, city theft. And he goes on to say he's gonna have a hard time sleeping. But I mean, this is not good. And apparently he's not the only one. There's some other people out there too. Who controls this stuff?
Can I say something?
Sure.
Per the city administrator's weekly report, resolution receipt of many complaint calls related to the erroneous clearing of the cemetery plots. Numerous sentimental items removed from plots as part of the biannual cleaning of the cemetery, which is advertised and per ordinance. But in some cases, it appears items should have been allowed to remain. So I think we need clarification on what the ordinance is and what additional actions are being taken to correct this.
Okay.
And I'd like to just correct that Para does not hire the cemetery.
Oh, I know Parrot doesn't.
Okay, it sounded like you said Para had hired.
No, I said who?
No.
I mean, and so the other thing is
He's not
that
very
doesn't
well.
address damage to the shrubs and the vines up there. And this is not new for me. Even when I was on Parab, we are not protecting our lilacs. I went up there to check out what he was talking about. And our they're lilac bushes that have like one branch with a few leaves on it, and the rest of it looks dead, probably is dead, but it's a deer problem, and all it needs is like an inexpensive package of deer netting that goes over them. And I've told this to Shelley and the person before her and the person before her, him and then the person before him. It's a very inexpensive fix, and all they have to do is care enough to get out there to do it.
I would also suggest, and I don't remember, I read the contract with the, that, city gardener, the new city gardener had. I don't remember if the cemetery is in there or not. It's not, okay, so
But it
that's
should
probably.
be.
Well, I don't know, whatever, that is a problem.
Maybe next time,
That
but
is a
they
problem,
can't
and I
expand
think
it right now,
Because
so.
she understands these things, and she would not let that happen. I mean, since I've been living in that neighborhood, we've had a hedgerow of lilacs that would fill this whole room from side to side, that is now maybe to the podium with a dead shrub in the middle. I mean, they've just been devastated, and it's a simple fix, no chemicals, no nothing. Yeah, it's just ridiculous, and I don't know who hires these guys. It's like the horse question. You're gonna hire somebody to work with plants, get somebody who knows what a plant is.
They are going through
Anything else, let's try to focus.
No, that's it, it's just, you know, I'm sorry,
I
it's
did
an
have a long
ongoing
conversation with
problem.
that gentleman about the problem, and I did refer him to, I believe, either Shelley or
Well,
Lee.
he should be put on the street crew or something and get out of the garden.
They
No,
catch it.
I have a conversation with
No, he's no
Oh,
longer employed,
the gentleman.
he's gone,
Very good.
and it is challenging. We have not, that position's been advertised for some time, and he was the first one that's been hired since I've been
I
there.
have someone who's
So
applied to
he
me for a
lasted
job.
about a week and a half.
Let's move it along here,
I'll
so.
send
I just think it's important for
Anything
you all to
else?
know that there just hadn't been anybody.
I'll send people to you, cause I have people asking me all the time for a job. And I pay more than you guys, but they might still take it.
Anything else?
No, sir.
One of the things we wanted to ask is for next week, if we want to start at 5:30 or 6 o'clock with the, special session.
Okay.
Right now, it's listed as 5:30, it's a thing Leah is gonna be talking about, regarding the report from
Right,
Finance
finance
Department.
department, and I'll be sending you out something later this week, so. It's certainly up to you, one of the reasons why, if you'll notice, we've been trying to do the special sessions and executive sessions beforehand is because typically then, especially in a work session, which would be next week, then staff doesn't have to stay till the end, so that just kinda helps staffing wise, especially since Jamie is the city clerk's office for for the next 2 weeks. And so, but if there's a problem with 5:30, we can push it to 6 and then change the regular council meeting.
What's your pleasure?
5:30 is fine.
5:30, will that be enough time to move through it?
Yeah, I think so. I'm gonna,
Half an hour?
yeah, cause I'm gonna send you everything in advance for you to read, and so I'm gonna highlight a few things, and then you'll have a chance to read it and ask your questions.
And there aren't decisions that we are needing to make.
I don't think so, but I'll outline, I'll outline what I think, I'm gonna outline my recommendations. And then you all will have a chance to read their report and my cover memo, and then you can tell me what you wanna do.
Okay. Everybody okay with 5:30 next week?
Yeah. Okay. The only other thing is, depending upon discussions with Bob and whether or not I'm ready to actually bring something back, that's a possibility also. And that's on my list of things to do, so.
It's just that the, finance staff may need to show up for the, finance one, but may not need it for.
No, they were supposed to let me know by noon today.
Okay,
So, we're going with executive session.
great, okay. Second is, I personally would really like an update from TRS on where they are with the, property on the west side of town. That's been lingering and, we need to move that.
Is that the appraisal,
Yeah.
property appraisal? Okay, I did ask.
Well, there's other stuff, but appraisal was part of it, but I don't even remember, but we've got to move that along.
They're not the speediest
Okay.
people. Well, they did the web. They were slow.
My
Still
number,
working on that.
my number 3 issue is, the incline I was going to recommend, first of all, Kim has been doing really great work with, City of Colorado Springs, I think, to, move the issue along and to reestablish good relationships. I was going to recommend that Jay take that resolution as not that we recommend Jay, but we had originally proposed that we take it to the leadership of Colorado Springs and say, hey, we're serious about this, how are you gonna get serious about it, and make some proposals, and I was going to recommend that Jay might take it to, starting with, Jill Gabler to get, whatever, so I just throw that out to you, Jay, if you are willing to do that.
Give her a call.
And lastly, in addition, another proposal that I have, I keep hearing about personnel requirements. We've discussed and we never organized that. So along with the capital improvements plan, looking at additional personnel requirement functions that we have that are not covered by personnel, such as public information officer, such as a volunteer coordinator, and the list goes on and on. If we could start establishing that sort of a list, just like we've established the list for, capital improvements.
Okay.
And that is all I have, thank you.
Councilman Ted?
I was just gonna say, just briefly on the cemetery, I got something more descriptive than the letter. It was my wife driving into the driveway when everything was taken off her mother's grave. So, that's resolved, but, and I understand that, you know, somebody's not here. My next question is since we hired an interim police chief, how's he doing?
Well, so far so good. He's, I've talked with him a few times. He met with, or he talked with, Lauren Kramer and the other principal from KRW, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, going over kind of the assessment outline. That was supposed to have happened today. I've seen emails that he's already put out to all the members of his department, talking about how, you know, introducing himself, saying, I'm gonna be coming around to talk to you about a lot of issues, and, you know, please drop in and, you know, talk to me. And yeah, I mean, so far, it's, you know, it's been just a few days, and of course, I was gone for 2 of those 4 days. So, but everything that I've heard so far has been positive. I did hear about, the mayor brought a complaint, about the police department, and I talked to, the chief about that today, about the complaint process and what would happen. He was gonna reach out directly to that citizen, and I've asked for him to keep me in the loop, and so, you know, he seems to be doing what we're asking him to do, and he's, you know, I think it's been pretty positive, so.
And so, my understanding was that he doesn't have to be,
He's not sworn.
sworn,
No,
even though he's doing chief's job for us.
yeah, he doesn't have to be,
Really?
not on the interim basis.
Okay, I didn't know.
But he's not doing sworn police duties
No.
either, so he can't, obviously.
No. It's administrative.
Right.
Alright, anything else?
No.
Alright, I don't have anything, so I think the proper process is to adjourn this meeting. We were in recess on our special meeting.
Right.
Is there anybody from council who'd like to go back into that special meeting and back into the executive session? Alright, so we will adjourn this meeting and we will also adjourn our special meeting, which was converted, that's it, we're adjourned.
You can play LeBron and, you're drinking water, but.
Oh, yeah, there's no job.